Today's show is brought to you by our Extra Mile community on Patreon and mpb.com for quality used camera kit with a guarantee. Buy, sell, trade and create with mpb.com. I have a checklist. Things that I need to take on this adventure this week. A checklist above the one that I read to you very shortly at the start of the show always, but this there's a word on here that's music to my ears. Snacks. So I've looked up what are the best snacks to eat while hiking and mountaineering. Best snacks to bring: peanut butter and bananas. That could get a bit messy. Beef jerky, yes. Dried fruit, granola, veggies, nuts, seeds, tuna. Goldfish. Really? Hang on, let's look that up. Let's click on that one. Goldfish. Can you eat goldfish? Goldfish are as edible as any other freshwater fish. If you choose to eat it, know these facts first. Oh, that gross flake and or pellet stuff is what your fish has been eating exclusively. Pop a pellet or two and that's what your fish will most likely taste like. I'm not going to eat a goldfish that's been swimming around. We don't have one for a start, but I couldn't eat little Goldie that's been swimming around there as my friend, as a snack. Like carp, goldfish take on the taste of the water they swim in. If you're going to eat one, don't expect it to be tasty like trout or tuna, even if it's caught in the wild. A goldfish will most likely have a strong taste of mud and detritus. Even when it's fully cooked. I think I'm sticking to dried apricots. It's the Photowalk. You and I making some pictures with our cameras or smartphones, sketchbooking our walks together. It's a show for photographers of all flavors. It's a show for those who like walking or hiking. It's a show for explorers, those who find escapism and peace away from the noise, with a spring in your step and a picture to remind you of where that footprint was left. And I'll tell you, in one shake of a goldfish's tail beating a fast retreat from the snack box of a hiker, where this week's walking and photography adventure takes us, because we're on our travels today, and it's a show all made possible by our Extra Milers and mpb.com, which is a great place to buy and sell and trade used camera gear online in the States, in the UK and in Europe. And I know this because I use them myself to buy quality new to me kit. I've bought camera bodies, I've bought lenses, I've bought other accessories through them. And if you're buying, you get peace of mind, which is really important, with a 6-month guarantee. And if you're trading or selling, MPB will send a courier to your place to pick up the kit on a day that you tell them, and once it's arrived back at their warehouse and they've gone through all the checks to make sure it's been graded properly, you get paid direct into your account quickly. mpb.com is a very easy to use website, and it's helping photographers like you and me to buy quality used kit or sell gear that we no longer need to free up some cash and give others a chance to make their stories. Go to mpb.com and I'll have a link on today's show page, of course. And before we check some items off the famous not so famous checklist, I think I should explain a little about today's show.
Today on the Photowalk.
Each week I take a walk with you and my other listener, of course, and make some pictures. And along with me go your letters, your inspirational and often personal thoughts about life. And we break along the path to hear from guests recorded via Zoom around the world. The modern currency of meeting friends when you can't quite knock on the door and say, "Hello, it's only me. Can we have a chat?" Now and then, I do get a chance to walk with guests who'd usually be at the end of that digital line in person. And this week, well, it's one of those weeks. I'm walking in Snowdonia, as it's known traditionally by many or most in North Wales. We'll come to the name in a while. Snowdonia, a national park covering a total of 823 square miles. It's Wales' largest national park. Steeped, quite literally actually, with culture, history, folklore, heritage, a place of pilgrimage for nearly 4 million people every single year to visit, climb and explore the incredible peaks and the lakes and the streams and well, there's just so much to see. Now, out the traps, I'm a walker.
I might stretch to say hiker, but generally, the walks you and I take together are close to my home in Berkshire, not known for its mountains. The adventures you take and write in about are often far more exotic, making pictures from mountains and lakes and oceans, volcanoes even, around the world, and in between, of course, sometimes a saunter alongside a brook on a flatter surface, because sometimes that's the only tonic for life that you need. In many ways, my walks along the flats mean you don't listen to huffing and puffing akin to visiting a heritage railroad, much calmer for a show where you probably want to hear the words I'm reading from your wonderful letters. But today, there'll be huffing, I have no doubt, not just for comedic effect. There'll be some scrambling, there'll be laughs, there'll be revelations, not least that yours truly has never climbed a mountain in his life. Odd for somebody who presents a show about walking and making photos, don't you think? So it's time to put that right, with a guest and an extra miler friend of the show who wears many hats in life. Hats that involve, and these are just a few, the words circus, martial arts, teacher, close protection, and a few more besides. The most famous peak mountain in the UK he's challenged himself to is Ben Nevis, standing at 1,345 metres. Yes, precise numbers matter. He did it in a storm, which unexpectedly arrived to spoil the party. Nevis is known for that, though it's not the highest mountain in the wider British territories. That accolade is awarded to Mount Hope, a mountain rising to 3,239 metres. Those numbers are very important, forming the central and highest peak of the Eternity Range in northern Palmerland, Antarctic Peninsula, a part of the British Antarctic Territory. That far exceeds the sub-1,000 metres peak we're going to do today, hopefully, on this walk. Now, Andy is well-travelled with his hiking, and his climbing, and his scrambling, so he's a perfect guide for my inaugural peak climb, because I have a feeling that I'll tell you what, let's not do a spoiler too early, shall we? Let's meet instead our guide for the walk today, and in between our chats here and there, my studio self will pop up to regale you with further facts and things about our walk, or the history of the amazing peak and region on our photo walk today. So, that said, let's meet then Andy Fisher. Checklist out. 2 litres of water. 2 litres of water. Check. Undergarments and a warm jacket, because it can get cold up there in the hills, I'm told. Check. Snacks. Right. Garibaldi's, biltong, nuts, dried fruit. I love a dried apricot, and goldfish. Check, bar the last item. Walking boots, good socks, blister plasters, and most importantly, midge repellent. Midges at 2 o'clock. Check. Let's start the walk.
See, even when I'm 5 miles up higher than any commercial airliner, I still bring out your notes. Look, there it is. Trusty pad. No letters today, though. I didn't bring your letters. I thought that photographs and some time spent with our friend Andy Fisher would be more than enough. I did intend, on the walk up, to start some recording, but I'm telling you, you would not have enjoyed the experience. I was panting more than if you were to sit in one of those weird red velour cinema. I've never been in one, honest. Cinemas in that part of London that your mum and dad always used to warn you about. So we've come up, we've stopped. A group of kids, I don't know, how old were they, Andy? About 14, 15?
I'd say younger. I think we were looking at 11, 12-year-olds there, yeah.
They were pelting up
They were
behind
shooting
us.
up nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Where do we start? First of all, thank you for inviting me to the north of the tippy-top point of north part of Wales before you get to Anglesey, Snowdonia, which has a Welsh name, of course.
Which I have no idea.
That's your first
Throwing me on the
test.
spot.
You failed.
Fisher fails.
Yeah, Fisher fails. That's what we'll call these bits, Fisher fails moments. There was
There'll be a lot of
well,
those.
while we're about it, actually, there was a second Fisher fails. That was the first part of the day, and you didn't spot this, but I did. I can't remember. I grinned or grimaced when we went to the what was that place where we ate? What's it called?
The Molshabad Cafe.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Fantastic, yeah.
What was my fail there?
You asked for an English breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a proud
Can I have a
Englishman.
full English, please? And the place went quiet.
They're very gentle and kind people there, and they forgive me my trespasses. But it's good. It's a good way to start a walk is to go in and have a nice cooked breakfast.
Oh, it was amazing.
It sets you up nicely for the day, particularly a day like today. Which is idyllic.
Well, we set off. We've been going an hour and 5 minutes ish, give or take, and we set off. It was cloudy, and now it's now the sun has burned through those clouds. We're not halfway up, are we?
No, I don't think so. Not quite. No, I think we're probably about a third of the way. So
What?
we've come off the A5 and we're heading towards Mol Shabbat, which is 872 meters high, and it's a lovely tucked away part of Snowdonia. It's away from some of the better known peaks, but it has beautiful views. You've got a bit of scrambling. We're currently based around some remnants of a slate quarry and a slate mining facility.
Yeah, this is, isn't it?
So it's a really nice place to come, and if you're not a mountaineer or you're not used to doing some of the more challenging walks, this one is within reach of most beginner walkers. It's beautiful here.
So today's show is about it's about walking. It's about making photographs. I'm making some photographs. I brought my X100V. I didn't bring anything else with me. I know when Mally of Treeland, when he walks up, he takes literally the sort of gear that the BBC would be happy with, all on his backpack. But my backpack's weight is mainly made up of we'll talk about the checklist in a minute, the amount of water that you've made me carry up. I think, sheep, if you want any water, I've got it. It's in my backpack. Don't worry with the reservoir about a mile away. So, it's about walking. It's about making some photographs. And we're going to talk about mental health today. And we're going to talk about... And Andy wears so many different hats. You're a teacher. You're a mentor. You're a martial artist. You teach people how to wild camp and look after them. In fact, you do the CV.
Okay, so... Cliff Notes version is that I left school, did my degree, tried to fit into normal society. I worked in advertising, hated it.
I like the runaway bit.
Yeah.
We've missed that bit out. Have we got an Oliver Twist story?
Yes. I then decided one day, I was working in advertising and I placed an advert in the newspaper where I worked that was advertising for circus performers for Malaysia. No. And I phoned them up to get copy for the advert, and we had this cross conversation where they thought I was applying for a job. And halfway through the conversation, I realised that I wanted that job more than my own. So I basically blagged my way into becoming a dancer in a Malaysian circus. And I travelled out.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah. So I travelled out to Sunway Lagoon in Kuala Lumpur, which was like the equivalent of our Alton Towers. And 8 weeks after the interview, I was on a stage performing to Cotton Eye Joe and Thriller in costumes. And then when I was out there, I learned other skills. So I learned unicycling and trapeze. And the more things you could do, the more valuable you were in the circus. So I did that, and then realised that after about a year of doing that, the thing that I enjoyed most actually wasn't the performance. It was the teaching. When new groups came in and they had to learn skills, I loved the transference of knowledge and abilities.
Oh, so you didn't train early on as a teacher at uni?
No.
The education for being in education was actually being a circus performer.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I came back to the UK. I survived a plane crash on the way back to the UK. I came via Aeroflot, and they didn't get the landing gear down as we came in to refuel. So the plane kind of bounced along the runway, and we were left in the United Emirates for a couple of days whilst they got a new plane for us.
Just a standard Aeroflot landing,
exactly.
What I've heard. Sorry, that sounds a bit...
No, absolutely right. I had one half of a seatbelt, and they just told me to tie it around my leg. I mean, it was crazy.
The Eastern Bloc Airlines were a bit like that. When I first flew with the BBC on Tarom have changed now. It's a very plush airline now. But I was travelling in a DC whatever, which still had luggage nets. So as you took off, some of your luggage sort of went back to the smokers at the back, and as you came into land, it would all shift forward again for you.
Yeah. So I had the advantage of I turned up 3 days late for my first lecture in teacher training,
right? And
stepped in, and it was a mess. I hadn't even gone home, so
No.
And the lecturer said, "Who on earth are you?" And I said, "I'm really sorry. My name's Andy Fisher, and I've had a plane crash." and that was my beginning of teacher training.
Oh.
So I did my teacher training. I then moved to Norwich, which is where I teach. And I taught there for 10 years and loved it and still love it. But I got itchy feet after the 10-year point. And I'd always believed that you shouldn't be in the teaching profession if you aren't passionate about it. So I decided to get out for a while. And because I had this parallel background in unarmed combat and conflict management, I worked with a training group preparing people in high-risk jobs to stay safe. So working with door supervisors, security guards.
But how did that come about, though? That certainly wasn't from being a trapeze artist.
No.
In a far-off circus.
Yeah, it began with me being a little kid with a big mouth.
Right.
And anyone who said anything about my mum, however big they were, I'd fight them.
Right.
And I would inevitably end up coming home with black eyes. And my dad, in frustration, suggested I do self-defense classes. He was a career soldier and, was used to handling himself. And what I didn't realise, I thought my dad was training me to be able to fight better. And what he was hoping is that it would train me to have enough self-discipline that I didn't get into fights.
Right.
So from the age of 9 onwards, I've always had a practice in one form of martial art or another. And then I was working as a nightclub door supervisor in the evening. So I was teaching by day and bouncing by night so that I could get real world experience in dealing with violence and conflict. And I got headhunted by an organisation, a training group that said, we're looking for a director of training. Would you be interested? So that's how I shifted from school teacher.
These strange routes of life that you don't expect.
Exactly.
They're incredible.
Yeah, it's been a real ride.
Yeah.
And one thing leads to another. So I did that, part of that training. Most of the other people in the organisation were much more highly skilled than me, or they'd been ex-military or ex-Royal Protection.
Yeah.
So I was sent to Hereford to do my close protection training with an organisation out there and qualified, passed.
Did they have any connections with the SAS?
The instructors were all former serving soldiers, or GCHQ.
Yeah.
It was an organisation called Phoenix.
Because that is where the
Services.
SAS are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know whether Phoenix are still around, but it was a great training opportunity. And I did that, came back to Norwich, carried on my instruction. But at that stage, I was missing teaching. And I met my wife. And while that kind of work is really interesting, it's not great for dating. So I stepped back into the classroom and continued my contact with people in that world. So I then did 4 years as a land-based survival instructor and trained and qualified doing that. And so now my life is a weird hybrid of all of those experiences. So I teach, but I also do a lot of outward bound work with the kids that I teach and get away to places like this when I can to decompress.
Well, we've got a checklist. This is the checklist. Now, originally we were going to wild camp.
Yes.
But on account of the fact I don't have a spare 600 quid for all the for all the stuff that would be necessary for properly doing it up a mountain.
You can do it cheaper, but the cheaper you do it, the more uncomfortable you're going to be.
Yeah.
In these conditions.
I should have brought my sleeping bag. We could have done it.
Yeah, you would be fine probably up here. Certainly over the next few days, the weather forecast, we could have been out, not even probably needing bags. I mean, the temperature is supposed to drop down no lower than 14 degrees.
Wow.
So
we'll stay up then.
I'm good if you are. Let's do it.
He actually means that. Day hike equipment. This is my checklist. So we have a checklist at the start of every show. You've heard my checklist today already, but Andy's is a lot more involved. Rucksack with dry bag, failed on that because I've not brought that with me.
But it's not going to rain.
But it's not going to rain. Boots with ankle support, check. Socks, yes. Trousers, waterproof over trousers, got it. Base, mid, layer, yeah, I've got those. Mid is essentially... So if you're coming out on a walk like this, you want... The first layer is just not a T-shirt, is it really?
Well, it can be. It's ideally not to wear cotton, but you want something that's wicking so that it allows the sweat to come off you and it can be fast drying. And it's breathable.
Yeah, which is what we're wearing.
Yeah, we've got on's ideal. Yeah.
Then the mid layer is a fleece.
Yes, can be a fleece, can be an insulated jacket, something that's going to trap the warmth into the body. So if you've stopped moving and it's cooling down, but it's not raining, so you don't need an outer shell, but you want something that's going to hold the heat in.
Yeah. So then your coat is, as described.
Yeah, designed to keep out wind and rain or both.
Gloves, hat. I've got hat. Head torch, spare batteries. I haven't got a head torch.
I've got 2 with me, just in case you need one. 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
That's a good phrase. I'll use that. Map and compass. I'm failing terribly here.
I've got those 2.
I never doubted it. Water bottle. Why on earth have you made me schlep up with 2 litres?
All right, so knowing the route we are, and the temperature is going to go up to 25 degrees today, one of the easiest things to do on an extended walk is to dehydrate, and then the wheels fall off very quickly. And your body is not great at telling you when you're thirsty. So by the time your mouth is dry, you are pretty fairly dehydrated at that point, and your performance is impaired. Mental faculties are impaired, decision making is impaired. So I've got 2 litres in my pack, and I've got an additional litre, and I've got a water filter that I can draw from natural sources to replenish it if I need to.
What does that taste like?
Absolutely fine. So the technology is incredible today. So
Can we try some?
Yeah, definitely. I use something called a Catadine squeeze.
Right.
So it's just a little squeeze bottle, and it will filter out 99.9% of the nasties. Because the last thing you want to do is drink from a lake and then find that there's dead sheep in it, and you go down with cryptosporidium, and you've got things coming out of both ends. That's not a pleasant way to end a day.
I'm changing my mind, because I'm the sort of person that finds that 1%.
the only thing it doesn't screen out are some viruses, because they're too small, and heavy metals, things like that. But in the water courses where we are, will be absolutely fine.
Snacks. You put in brackets here, Garibaldi's. I looked for the last shop I went to yesterday, but I meant to get it days before that. No Garibaldi's. And I thought, there's my prop. Gone. I mean, I've got plenty of snacks, so that's things like nuts. I brought some dried apricots.
Great. Yeah, it's psychological more than physical, actually.
Yeah.
It's to have something to just chew on.
Could I not live on Kendal mint cake?
You could, but you might find that your energy levels roller coaster a little bit.
Yeah.
You and I, we've talked about this earlier. We've both got sweet teeth.
Yeah.
And the danger of that is that you end up eating sweets and biscuits and chocolate, and then you're good for an hour, and then suddenly your energy crashes. So something that's going to even out your energy over the day is a good plan.
Well, the drive up yesterday was so long. I got stuck in a queue at one stage for so long. I ate the Kendal mint cake anyway. That was in a car. Phone and charger. I know, I brought a charger with me.
Excellent.
Yep. Any medications done, blister plasters, you've got small first aid kit, emergency blanket or survival bag. I think we've established I don't have that. What? Toilet roll and small trowel?
Yes, so we'll be good because we started the day in habitation.
Yeah.
But if you're out for an extended period of time, or if you haven't been able to go and you suddenly find that you really need to go and you're 3-4 kilometres into a long walk, there's nothing more miserable than clenching and hoping it will go away and waiting to get to a point where you can go.
Enjoy your breakfast, by the way.
Exactly. So having the option of knowing if I have to, I could squat somewhere and go.
Yeah.
Is psychologically a bit of a relief, I think.
The problem with that is that I just know somebody would walk around the corner.
Yeah, inevitably.
Is there some sort of, like at golf when you shout 4, is there a shout that people know, okay, somebody's just passing the time of day up there, I'll stay where I am for a moment?
I think you're more likely to attract people if you do that. I've tried all kinds of different ways of going to the loo in the wilderness at different times, and it's one of those, when you've done it the wrong way, so that is either having to use your hand only or whatever the local vegetation is that then causes you to have rashes for days afterwards. Just carrying a little bit of toilet paper seems like a minor inconvenience and a good weight off your mind.
Yeah, let's move on. Why would you want a lighter? Oh, for a fire, clearly.
No, actually, if you do need to go to the loo...
I thought we'd moved on from this.
We were going to, but you brought it straight back again, so here we are. You don't want toilet paper biodegrading over time. You want to get rid of it. So you would dig and deposit your waste, and you would light and burn the toilet paper. And then you cover it over and you put a cross of sticks above it, and that indicates there's human waste there, so don't go near it. It's just about being sensitive to the environment you're in. You want to leave no trace.
Well, there is another checklist for if you're staying overnight, but that's what we need today, is what we've mentioned.
Yeah, and you can probably get away without having 70% of that until you need it, and then you really wish you'd carried it. So it's about getting a balance between not carrying a pack that's so heavy that you are uncomfortable, but coming prepared.
Yeah, mine's quite heavy at the moment, but I should be burning through 4 litres of water over the next couple of hours.
Exactly.
So that might make it a little bit less.
Yeah, it's a kilogram for every litre of water you're carrying. So that depletes as the day goes on, of course.
God, the rest of it must be Kendal mint cake then. Right, we've got a summit to make and a bit more of a climb to do. Oh, where we are at the moment is just briefly is a old quarry, an old slate mine.
Yeah, and apparently this was a working slate mine until 1884.
Yeah.
And the people who worked here all year round, they worked hard as nails. And It's on a day like this, it's lovely, but I've been here in bleaker conditions, and it really, the wind rips into you, the wind chill is pretty intense, and if you could imagine mining the slate, then putting it onto sleds and dragging it down the mountainside, very, very tough people, very impressive.
There's a few buildings that have subsequently, of course, fallen apart. Purple bricks would call that airy, I think, but that's the sort of building that they wouldn't have lived here, would they?
No, these were, it's an operating mine, so they would drop down into the valleys at the end of the working day. I'm sure they could stay up here if the weather really set in and they had to.
I've made a picture, but is that the sort of place where you'd wild camp?
No, you could, and I have in these environments, but we are fairly close to the water table still down here, and as you can see, there's a lot of reeds, and that tells us that it's boggy ground, which tells us that the insects are here, and they like nothing better than to feed on walkers in the evenings. So as long as the weather's kind enough, I would push up and I'd wild camp on the summit somewhere. Depends on how windy it is, but there's nothing better than waking up and you look out of your tent and you've got these amazing vistas. And when we do get to the top of Molshebod, if it's a good day like we have today, you can see 13 of the 14 highest peaks in Snowdonia from the summit. So it's a great place to camp.
Well, let's stick some more meters between here and there, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Molshebod sits isolated above the village of Dolwyddelyn. It is the highest peak in the Molwinian mountain range, and it's one of the lesser visited in the region. It was, as we found and saw, the site of a former slate quarry, though I can't even begin to imagine the effort. Even further down the peak it must have been to haul slate along and then down into the valley and onward, let alone make your way to work each day. Past the quarry, the path reaches the shores of an isolated lake, cradled beneath the cliffs of Molshebod. It's also known as the Lake of the Ox's Eye, which lore suggests is so named from an ox that lost an eye under the strain of pulling slate across this undulating land. It's still possible to enter one of the shafts, and a very large mound several stories high, we thought anyway, of slate spoil remains to this day. What you don't know is that we've already recorded this piece. You do know this now, so we put our sacks back on, just about to head off, and I looked down and all I could see was the camera and not the audio recorder. Right, start again. You need to take your bag off actually, so I can point to the bits.
Okay.
We've come along a ridge, not a ridge, a sort of pass, and I can see a ridge. And suddenly this mountain has opened up. It's an entirely different shape. That bit, I think I can do.
Yeah, we're coming around to the ridge line now, so you can see a nice, steady, gradual move towards the summit. The good idea about following a ridge line is that the gradient's never so steep that you're going to destroy your knees, and there are lots of natural pause points for hydration breaks and so on.
Yeah. We saw some hikers come across just a moment ago, and one of them had sticks. Now, I know now, because of what we've just recorded, instead of it making like a surprise now, oh, you had sticks in the car. You do have sticks in the car. Yes. There's a reason that you didn't necessarily bring them.
Yeah, so walking poles are really helpful if you're going to be doing a lot of descending or if you're carrying a heavy load. And so for me, a heavy load for a multi-day hike will be between 15 and 18 kilograms. Today we've got day packs that are probably not much heavier than 8 to 10 kilos probably.
Right.
But if you do use poles and you're doing descents over staircases, it's taking between 30 and 35% of the load off your knees because you're basically tripoding some of the weight into your arms. So it's a really good idea, particularly if you're over the hill, as am I, and I've had operations on both of my knees at various points, so my knees aren't in the best of nick, so poles can help. But the disadvantage is that if you're scrambling, you've got to then deposit those poles in your bag.
I don't think you look over the hill. When we met that group, there were a group of the girls that were hiking up from a school. What is it called? Dragon School in Oxford, which surprised me. I thought if they'd have said Dragons in Swansea, but the guy that was guiding them looked at you and he asked you, what do you do? And I think he was expecting you to say, oh, ex-military. You've got that look.
Have I?
Yeah.
It's all the gear. It's not me. I've kept myself fairly busy and fairly active. And the secret to staying in shape, I've realised, is to have friends who are younger and fitter than you are. But psychologically, you always feel like you're the runt of the litter.
Yeah.
But yes, I try and stay in shape, and I try and make sure that, like with my knees, I'll make sure that my training is such that I'm creating strength around the joints. I'm very flexible, so if I don't train, I tend to dislocate things, or I need to have a decent amount of muscle tone in order to stay well.
Dan was sleeping in the bunkhouse with us last night. He went home this morning. You've been walking some mountains here with him. He's incredibly fit. He's 10 years. He's got 10 years. He's 10 years younger.
Yes.
So you've got 10 years on him.
Yeah.
He essentially jogs up these, doesn't he?
Yeah, Dan is the CEO of Parkour Generation, so he is a professional fitness expert.
Yeah.
And he's always kept himself in good shape. He's got a very good stride and a very good work ethic. So when we come here, essentially when Dan strides out, I'm doing a light jog. So
Are you stubborn? Do you try to keep up with him?
Very stubborn and fail to keep up with him, but I try. Yeah.
But you did, because you spent what, 3 days with him?
Yeah, we've done some good walking, mainly to the south of Llyn So we've walked Trefan, Bristly Ridge, the Gliders, Egarn, done some scrambling. So we fitted a lot into what was actually 3 days, so it's been good.
We'll talk about the scrambling in a little while, when perhaps we're at one of the stages, because there are different stages of scrambling, different grades of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think.
Just for scrambling, 1, 2 and 3.
1, 2 and 3.
And then climbing is 1 and goes beyond 10, 12.
Lower the number, easier, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll be at what?
We'll be doing grade 1 scrambling
Grade 1.
today, yeah. It will never go to +1. It's pretty straightforward.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, bag.
Yes.
This is what we were discussing. Your bag, my bag, you can if you could hear weight, you've just heard it. But it's a really good bag. I mean, it's got a Swiss flag on it, so it has to be good, doesn't
quality,
it?
Yeah.
You know, this is the Swiss Army knife of bags. It has so many pockets. It drives Sam, my wife, absolutely mad. She says, "Don't take that bag on holiday with you, because you always lose your passport." I wouldn't be surprised if my passport's in there,
It's in there.
somewhere at the bottom.
You may need that for Wales now.
I don't think, not just yet. But so look, it's great. It's got lots of pockets. Photographically and for my sound gear, perfect.
Yeah.
But it's a heavy bag. You've got professional walker's bag, a hiker's bag, mountaineer's bag.
Yeah, so this is the bag I'm using is an Osprey, which is a brand I really like. It's 38 litres, so about the right size for a day bag.
Yep.
And then the main difference between yours and mine is just that mine has the hip strap, so I can alternate whether I'm carrying the weight on my shoulders or on my hips, or even it out. Yours is only got shoulder support, so
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, it'll take its toll a little bit.
I'm now holding onto my straps.
Right, yeah. And that's all of these things you learn with experience. So there's a lot of people that go up into the hills the first time with a pair of trainers on and a bottle of water from the garage, and they learn from hard knocks, and then next time they're a bit better prepared and a bit better prepared. But as we said earlier, there is an expense incurred as well, and not everybody. The gear that I have has been acquired over time, and I've pressure tested things, and some things I now don't bring because they're redundant or I didn't find they worked well, and so you find your own system of what works for you.
Yeah. There's some features on yours. First one's quite obvious. It's a pipe connected to your bladder, and I don't mean by that Andy's had some sort of surgical interference to make this walk. It's a bladder within the bag, obviously, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that a better weight distribution way of doing it?
Yeah, so the main advantage of it is, yes, it is, because it's a soft bag and it's distributed across the lower back. It slips into a pouch at the back of the backpack. Yeah. But the primary value of having a bladder is that it then gives you this hose with a bite valve, and it's magnetically linked to my strap.
Yes.
And it means that if I decide that I want to drink, there's almost no effort in acquiring the water. I just pull the valve off, put it in my mouth, drink, and clip it back on again. Yeah. We tend to want to avoid the hassle of taking a backpack off, opening the bag, getting the water out, drinking it. Yeah. So bit by bit, you become increasingly dehydrated without realising it. And so this makes sure that I drink little and often.
Got a whistle there. I'm sure you're probably not supposed to blow it at the moment, are you? Because it's a sign of distress.
You can blow it once, but if you blew it 6 times, that's the universal symbol for require help.
Right.
So if you're listening out for 6 peeps, that indicates...
Give us a peep. What note is it?
So it's quite shrill. So
right. D flat.
Quite shrill.
Yeah.
So yeah, 6 of those.
Yeah.
And then if you hear that,
Yes.
then and you have a whistle as well, then you would peep 3 in reply, and then you start to walk towards the sound until eventually you find each
get
other.
it.
Yeah.
And then what looks like a spirit level, clearly not. This is actually that's something to help you find your bag.
Yeah, so this is a little vial with a piece of tritium in there, which is a radioactive isotope that degrades. Its half-life is older than me. It'll outlive me. And unlike most glow-in-the-dark paints, which require exposure to sunlight to be charged up and then they degrade over usually minutes, this will glow brightly throughout the night. Always.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's glowing now.
It's probably glowing now, but we
just
can't see it.
So
No.
I don't know whether I can. You probably can't even with that see it.
No, not
But
really.
Tonight I'll show you in the bunkhouse.
Yeah.
It glows well. So I always have a couple of those on me, and if I'm leaving my pack and I'm in the middle of the woods, I'm going out and gathering some firewood and coming back, it will show me where it is. I'll hang them up in a tree, and it guides me back.
I was going to say the trick is not to put it on the bag and then put the bag on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like the
Yeah.
glow sticks that you can
Yeah.
get, but it's permanent.
And then finally, there's some beads. These aren't to do with, well, they're kind of abacus.
Yeah.
An abacus of mileage.
Yeah, so ranger
Or
beads.
kilometres.
So there are 2 sets of beads. The first measures out kilometres and the second hundreds of metres. So there are 9 beads here. And
They're on a string.
they're on string.
And
yeah.
there's quite a friction to them, so they don't just fall down.
No, and the alternate to this is just picking up some pebbles on a path and putting 9 pebbles into one pocket.
Okay.
And then every time you've paced out what is 100 metres for you, you transfer a pebble to the other pocket, and that lets you know how far you've come.
Yeah.
So for me, I know that I will take 56 double steps for 100 metres with my leg stride. So if I were in whiteout conditions, it's really foggy, I'm walking towards a sheer ridge and I know it's 150 metres away, I can pace 100 metres and then 50 metres, and there's a sort of 5 to 10% error margin because you're going to be over uneven ground. If I'm ascending, then it will go up to about 65 steps, and if I'm descending, it's a steep descent will be about 70 steps. So it's a way of keeping track of how far you are going when visibility is so poor that you can't rely on the map.
And that's quite serious, because this morning at breakfast we were talking to your friend Dan.
Yeah.
And he went walking there was somebody in the walking party. In fact, you were in that party.
Yeah, with Wayne.
With Wayne. And Wayne went walking off on his own and got a bit disorientated, and he was walking dangerously toward just walking off a sheer face.
Yeah.
When out of the mist, of the snow, of the driving, whatever it was, came what I would call the ghost of an Irishman.
Yes, who pointed Wayne back onto the bike. It was his first mountain, which is, if you're ever going to go up a mountain, the first time you do it should not be Ben Nevis in blizzard conditions.
No.
It was 60 mile an hour winds, minus 18 with wind chill, and knee-deep snow in places. It was pretty brutal. April the 12th, so it was unseasonably miserable.
Yeah.
And Wayne pressed on, broke away from the group against advice, and it was very lucky that he was directed back onto track.
Very.
We were quite close to the
Did
sun.
you ever see that Irishman again? I bet he disappeared into the mist. Mysteriously.
I don't believe he was ever really there.
Yeah.
I think this is Wayne's imagination, his guardian angel protecting him.
Yeah.
So
maybe.
navigation's something that's, even basic nav doesn't take very long to learn.
No.
And it just gives you a degree of confidence. And I like gadgets. I've got a GPS in my backpack here, but I will very rarely pull it out, because I'll use that to check myself. If I think I know where I am, let's just check.
Yeah.
And I can do that on my phone.
These days
as well.
you can do it on your phone, can't you?
You can.
Yeah.
But for me, again, 2 is 1, 1 is none. My phone is my means of communicating with the outside world. My GPS is my navigation tool, and my map and compass are the ones I rely upon more than those. So I've got redundancy in case of need.
I remember when we first moved into this has nothing to do with walking, and we should start again. But we had a small outhouse. I felt very grown up. Never had outhouses before. And this was an outhouse, not a shed, by the way. And we just moved in, and we just threw stuff into various places. And my old piloting gear went into the outhouse with the chickens. And one night, somebody came and stole everything from the outhouse, all the electronic thingies, including my logbook, my pilot's logbook. That did upset me. I was able to get another one, but they took the GPS, and obviously, dodgy Dan probably not the Dan we know,
Yeah.
sold it down at the local Dog and Duck. But they would have had a bit of a surprise when they came to use that GPS, because it just showed them airports. I've got something here. When GPS was still kind of new, GPS unit, you'll love this. Or you'll be able to use this on the M4. Not unless you're at 5,000 feet, bozo, no.
Yeah, GPS is amazing.
It is.
I just think it's so easy to default to using tech because it's there, because it's easy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing my ML training later this summer, and you're not allowed GPS. It's all map and compass. And some people might say that's a bit archaic. Why would you need to do that? And it's because machinery fails. Things let you down. But and unless the poles flip, the compass is still going to be something you can rely upon for the time being, at least.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, the poles flip.
It's happened before.
Perish the thought. Right, one final thing, snacks.
Yes.
We mentioned snacks in our last conversation.
Yep.
I've brought half a Tesco Express on Newbury High Street. I just went along and got one of those. No Garibaldi's, but one of those. And so I ended up with apricots. I've got dried nuts. I've got a protein bar in there. I've got half a gammon. I think there's some eggs if they're still in there. My barbecue. No wonder that. You've just got a protein bar and something for the summit.
I've got 2 little protein bars, and then my summit treat's an apple. Nice crunchy apple.
Well, you enjoy your apple while I set my barbecue up and have a sirloin steak.
Excellent.
Right, enough of this nonsense. Onwards.
Trefan was mentioned by Andy just a moment ago there as one of the walks he'd taken with his good friend Dan Edwards, the founder of Parkour Generations. According to the National Trust, Trefan is to be admired and very much respected as it marks the line between hiking and mountaineering and is one of the most recognisable peaks in Britain, which means there's no easy way up and scrambling is not a choice. We have the choice to scramble or not today, and guess which way Andy chose for us. Anyway, according to the National Trust, this mountain has long been revered among climbers and mountaineers, and in 1907, the famous British climber and explorer George Mallory made his first 2 British rock climbs on Trefan. Mallory attempted then to climb Everest in 1924 and sadly died just 245 metres below the summit, along with his climbing partner, Sandy Irvine. Debate to this day contradicts that story. There are still those who do believe Mallory was the first, and not Sir Edmund Hillary, who practiced using oxygen on Trefan before heading out to conquer Everest with Sherpa Tenzing. And he also mentioned compass work, another essential item in his backpack. More worryingly, he mentioned a magnetic flip. A what, Neil? Well, where north becomes south and south becomes north. Can you even begin to imagine what might happen, including satellites just falling out of orbit? So I went to NASA for this info because they had a good article, and certainly it was less scary than the tabloid version I also found online. Stand by, quote from NASA. Since the forces that generate our magnetic field are constantly changing, the field itself is also in continual flux, its strength waxing and waning over time. This causes the location of Earth's magnetic north and south poles to gradually shift, and to even completely flip locations every 300,000 years or so. That might be somewhat important if you use a compass, or for certain animals like birds and fish and sea turtles whose internal compasses use the magnetic field to navigate. I don't know what that means, of course, for our goldfish snack. Maybe they circle the bowl counterclockwise, since everybody knows goldfish. They swim around the bowl in a strictly clockwise direction usually. Anyway, let's not get too frivolous, because there are some who really do believe this is going to happen in the next millennia. I'll be out that day, or washing my hair.
I am, as my children... Hold on, let me get my breath back. Constantly, and that wasn't for artistic effect either, as my children constantly remind me, 55 going on 56, closer to 60, Dad, than you were to 50, and much further away from your teenage years. They're kind like that, and it's taken me this long to do what we've just done. I've never scrambled. Now I'm going to call it a mountain. There are rules that say mountains have to be
taller than this, but mountaineers are doing scrambling all the time.
You know what? I'd need to go back and have a look and see what the official designation of a mountain is, because this might be a mountain, you know. So this is 872 metres, and the mountains of repute in Snowdonia are all over 900. They're things like...
We're not far off,
We're
then.
not far off, no. And it may well be that this is a mountain. It certainly feels like one, doesn't it?
Well, we've just scrambled. You said, right, we can scramble up the next bit. And I watched other people scrambling over there, a different path altogether. I thought, I could do that, no worries at all. And then you... and then you turn right, you and I honestly thought, when we were about a third of the way up, I thought, well, actually, it's much easier to go up than down now. I've just got to commit myself to this now.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's always... Climbing up's always easier than climbing down. And if you're halfway up, you may as well carry on, unless you really think you're not going to make it.
That's not the way we're going down, is it?
No, we've got a nice stroll down to a path.
Lovely.
So we get all of the hard work on the way up.
Hold on. We could have come up a path.
Yeah, but you don't want to be going up a path.
Where's the cable car?
No, you did, for your first bit of scrambling, you did really well there, because that's not straightforward, that little bit. It's grade 1, but it's slabby and you need to pick your footholds.
But I felt, because the grades are all to do with exposure, aren't they? And that's exposure in terms of falling, yeah?
Yeah, so there's 3 grades of scrambling in the UK, the way we designate it. So grade 1 basically means a sustained ascent where you are needing to use your hands as well as your feet, so you couldn't just walk up it. And then as you move from grade 2 to grade 3, the only real difference is the level of difficulty in terms of the exposure, if anything were to go wrong, coupled with the technicality of the moves needed. So it might be that on a grade 2 scramble, most of it's grade 1, but there are a couple of points where you need to have some more technical skill to be able to navigate the obstacle. And well, by the time you're at grade 3, ropes are recommended. You should be climbing with ropes really to be safe.
But I felt there, for a moment to me, novice that I am clearly, quite a bit of exposure, in that I thought, well, if I go now there, and there's a rock right underneath me by about 10 metres down, I've only got to fall uneasily on that, and the kids can start saying, well, you never did get to 56.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even tripping on a path and landing badly on a rock on a level path can be life-changing. You know, so there's always risk, and that's part of being in the mountains. But it's also part of what makes the experience up here so vital and so beautiful, is because you're reconnected to this idea of having to make dynamic risk assessments on a moment-to-moment basis, which we rarely have to do in our insulated world.
And that's what you teach, isn't it?
In part, yes. So I'm an English teacher, but I also do a lot of outward-bound activities with the kids I teach. Yeah. I really encourage people to get out, first of all, because there's something called biophilia, which is that we have a natural rest and digest response to being in the natural world. So if you are someone that's struggling with stress or finding life challenging or routine and mundane, just getting out, and it doesn't have to be in the hills, it can be to the beach, it can be in a wood, in a forest. I find this sort of sinking in and a connectivity back to my environment, which is very cleansing. If you couple that with vigorous physical activity, which we just did, then when you do come to a moment like now where we've got a bit of level ground and we're just sitting and we've got this amazing landscape around us, I find a very profound sense of calm comes over me, which I don't achieve anywhere else when I'm in a working week in the middle of Norfolk. It's a very beautiful feeling. But if you take one of the elements away, take the physicality or the landscape away, I never drop into this same space that we're in now. But yeah, it's great.
What a view as well. And then you couple in photography. I've been making some pictures nowhere near like the landscape photographers would with, if they were here now with their I think you'd need a UV filter for a start, wouldn't you? Yeah. But it's a view, isn't it? How far to go to the summit, do you think?
I think we've probably got, in terms of straight ascent, we've probably got another 350, 400 metres, but that's stretched out over about 2.5 kilometres. Right. But it is uneven, it's scrambling, so it's not the same as a walk. When you actually look on your stepometer, or you look on your Google Maps or whatever of how far you've come, it's always slightly disappointing.
Yeah, let me look now. Hold on. Apple Watch. Press my stepometer. Yeah, we haven't done a lot of miles.
No.
And my steps, 6,673.
You'd do that kicking around town on a Saturday morning, wouldn't you?
You would. I can do that at a wedding.
Exactly. Yeah, and so my typical teaching day, I'm between 11 and 15,000 steps.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you're not doing typical environmental walking. So you're by the end of today, when we come off here, so it's coming up to 1 o'clock now. I think we'll feel like we've done a good day's work. And you sleep well at the end of a day like this as well.
What's the difference between aerobic and anaerobic and the states that we find ourselves in as we're making this particular kind of walk?
Yeah, so primarily, so aerobic is when you are producing enough oxygen. You're oxygenating your blood such that the demand on your muscles it's in a positive, it's not in a deficit. Yeah. So you're not going into oxygen depletion or debt. And the way you'll tell that is that you can hold a steady conversation whilst we are walking, for example. So walking over flat terrain, chatting, you're fat burning in zone 2 aerobic exercise. Once you start doing things like we've just done, then you'll drop into anaerobic. So you're in oxygen debt, your muscles are then producing lactic acid, you're burning glycogen, and you can go for, depending on how fit you are and what your VO2 max is, you can go for anywhere between a few minutes to maybe an hour at that pace. But at a certain point, you're going to need to refuel or replenish or stop. And that's what cramps are. Cramps are the pooling of lactic acid.
Ah, your friend had that going up that Ben Nevis.
Yeah, it was just as we were descending, actually. Yeah. We were coming off Ben Nevis in pretty horrible conditions. And he's a very, very fit guy. He's got something like 4 or 5% body fat. He's very lean, much fitter than me, but it wasn't the kind of exercise he was used to. And so after that, we'd been walking for 4.5, 5 hours by then, descending in knee-deep snow, and suddenly the whole of his legs and lower spine cramped up, and it almost looked as if he'd been poleaxed. His body went rigid and he fell backwards and couldn't move. And he was imagine the worst cramp, but it's in the whole of your lower half of your body.
You wouldn't want to be scrambling up. No. A 1 in 3 like we just have been.
Yeah, and that was lactic acid build up, insufficient electrolytes, so he hadn't hydrated properly, and so we needed to get some salts into him, some water, stretch him out, and he was fine. And the rest of the day he was okay. It just it strikes you at the strangest times. You can have someone that's relatively out of condition that doesn't experience a cramp all day. So there's a lot of physiological differences between.
Yeah, and you often watch footballers, don't you? And you toward the end of a football match, and you think, buying time, but they're not, probably.
No. And sudden explosive movement as well, so we're stopping and starting, but we're not going at a pace at any point that's likely to incur a cramp like that. But you can. So when we were doing Ben Nevis that time, I was cramping at a very specific point, just above my kneecaps on my quads. Yeah. Every step. It spasmed. Yeah. I could walk through it, but it was miserable. The good thing about hill days like this is it lets you know where there are weak points in your training or in your health, and pain is an invitation to change. It's an opportunity to kind of recognise that maybe there are some gaps.
I'm going to ask you to do the PS today. That could have been one, couldn't it?
It could have been. Pain is an invitation for change.
One now.
Oh no!
You have to use a different one. You have to think of a very different one. So the next stretch then is easier than we've just done.
Sorry. Yeah, this is walk in the park for you now. Right. Yeah, this will be no problem.
I think you have a very strange idea of what my idea of a walk in the park is.
If you're heading upwards and we've got the breeze in our face, the sun is shining. We've got water. Yeah. You've got a barbecue. What could go wrong?
You're going to be so disappointed when we get to the top and I haven't brought that barbecue. What on earth is in that bag that it's so much? I feel a bit like I've cheated, though. I do feel... What I didn't want to do today was cheat. So there's two things I came out with. Now, I know people who do these sort of walks regularly will be thinking, oh, God, Neil, you are a bit of a drama merchant. But if you're not used to doing this, is the first mountain I've ever climbed. And I've done everything here. I did go up quite a steep mountainette, I might call it, with Nils. And I know Nils listens, so you might be saying, what, Neil, we did a mountain. You know, Nils, that we didn't. And I think you were humouring me. It was challenging. I'll give you that. It was challenging. But this is a step further, definitely a step further. And so I made myself a couple of personal rules, which I'll share with you now, since we're over halfway up now, aren't we?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So it's quicker to go up than go down now. Right, number one was, I did feel nervous this morning. I felt at breakfast time, I had this strange sort of
achy behind the eyes, headachy thing.
Oh, okay.
And I know that's what I get when I'm anxious.
Okay, well that's
Always
a good thing.
anxious. Anxiety, I know, I'm anxious.
Yeah.
So I don't feel anxiety much, actually. So some people say with wedding photography, I wouldn't do that. It would make me far too anxious. Never felt anxious shooting a wedding. Doesn't matter if it's a posh one in a pub, one in the dark, wherever, one abroad. I've never felt stage nervous for broadcasting without sounding like Billy Big Whatsits. I've managed to step onto stage at Wembley to introduce bands onto stage when I was at Radio 1 and never felt nervous. The Blackpool Roadshow always had something like 25,000 people. I just thought that was amazing. Never nervous.
Yeah.
I was anxious this morning. So number one rule was don't say to Andy, I'm not feeling like it, don't go.
Right.
That was an easy one not to happen.
Something that you would feel disappointed at afterwards.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So I didn't think that was likely. Number two would be sort of third the way up. Say, Andy, I think I'm suffering a bit. Can we go really? I feel like we have gone slow, but we've gone faster than perhaps I would have thought
so
I was.
So you've gone at a pace that is a challenge for you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you want it to be. You want to get to the end of the day and say, I didn't have a lot more in my tank, but I had enough to get it done safely.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be.
Third one I failed on though.
What was that?
Now the third one was at no point give your bag to Andy.
Well, to be fair, you didn't give it to me. I took it from you. And that was just we just got to...
Did you see I was off balance? Were you worried about me falling backwards?
No. Your balance was absolutely fine. And I think you would have completed it fine. But I knew that you were at your edge in terms of feeling safe at one point on that part of the scramble. So by taking your bag, more of your weight was not being pulling you backwards.
Yeah.
So it's just a safety point. And it was only 10 meters that I just took it up a ridge for you.
Still failure.
But you didn't give it to me. I took it from you. So you kept that rule. Yeah.
It's not a Fisher fail.
It's not a fail. It was simply a safety point.
A safety point. All right.
that I decided to do. So your third point's safe.
All right. Okay. Right. I'll need another sip of water. Do you know what? I think
You're working through it.
I'm working through it. I've done. If that's 750, the famous not so famous flask, which has been brought. We must get a picture at the summit. Absolutely must.
Definitely. Put it on the trig board and photograph.
Yeah, that's it. That's 750 mil, I think. And then I've got 2 lots of 2 litres. 1 2 litre is almost gone entirely. And the original 750 is gone.
And so when I said to you earlier, how much would you typically think you'd take out for a day? You said two of those.
2 famous, not so famous flasks.
Yeah, so 1.5 litres that would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Not enough.
I would imagine that we will comfortably get through 2.5, 3 litres each today.
Well, I won't, because I'll be run out.
Then that's if we find a water course, then we're good.
But we're in trouble now because we won't find a water course now so easily, will we? We've gone past them.
You can always find water in the mountains. Yeah. There will be water up there. Again, maps are our friends there.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to use the poo shovel.
Yeah. Also, descent is always faster than ascent.
Right.
So once we're on the ridge, we can be getting off half the time it took us to get up. But I will always have redundancy. So I will carry 3 and drink 2. And that way, if you run short, we've got a litre of mine that you can use.
Now that text messages are working up a mountain, not that I've been looking at them, I want you to know. I hope Dan hasn't texted you and said, how slow is that geezer?
No, Dan is very, very understanding and respects anyone's physical effort, whatever level they are. Yeah, including mine. Like as I said to you earlier, it's very easy to feel some level of shame when you are hanging around with people like that. But they are elite athletes. So I think given that, we are middle-aged and
it's levels, isn't it? Because I'm looking at you right now as the elite athlete.
We should hang out more often.
Right. A bit more water. Let's go. That's the noise of somebody getting up. Oof. We have a friend that makes noises like that, just getting up for the dining room table. I'm telling you. A bit more water. Famous, not so famous flask.
It's getting lighter.
There we go. If you promise to climb a mountain higher than this and make a picture from the top, I will send you one of these flasks. We'll have to see how that goes, because what I don't want now is 50 emails.
You can say the first 10.
The first 10, that's it, first 10. See, you stop thinking logically. That's why you need a Fisher with you. That's Fisher Price. Dudum. Hold on, let me take some water. Just to prove we're a long way up, I'm going to hold the microphone out into the wind. Something I never ever do when I'm recording programmes, because I like you to have top quality audio. Here we go. If that didn't make any noise, I'll be really disappointed. Right, we've scrambled, and I'm really proud of how far we've scrambled up. But let's talk about you for a minute with your photography. You make portraits, and I'm going to put some on the show page. They're beautiful portraits, and it's a real passion, isn't it, for you? But it is a business as well.
Well, yes, it should be. It should be more of a business than it is. I have a website. I do charge if somebody comes to me commercially, but I'd say probably 80% of the photographs I take are either friends, family, or somebody that I've approached and said, I'd love to have the opportunity to photograph you. You know, you've got a really interesting face. And
Is that how you literally work?
Yeah. I'd say I'm not shy about approaching somebody and saying, look, you know, I really would like the opportunity for you to for me to do a portrait for you. And often they'll say, well, what are you going to do with the images? And the answer is, it's entirely up to you. They can disappear and never be seen, or you can use them as you see fit. There's no charge. It's my gift to you in exchange for you know, giving me some time. And therefore, I feel really connected to the portraits that I've made of people. And I also spend probably, for every hour in front of the camera, I'm spending 3 or 4 hours in post-editing. I like that process.
Wow, long time.
Yeah, of colour grading and of adding textures to the backgrounds and so on. Yeah, it's something I love. It's very much just a learning curve. Because I'm entirely self-taught. So I've subscribed to quite a lot of online tutorials and websites and things.
Glyn Dewis has a good name, doesn't he, for mentoring and training?
Yeah.
And he's a very slow, methodical Photoshop process.
Yeah, and so Glyn Dewis was one of the first people whose work I studied, and I subscribed to some of his tutorials. There's a chap called Jason Brough who runs Jabu Studios, and I study his work. Yeah, there are a lot of really talented photographers out there, and isn't it interesting that I don't think of myself as having a particular style, but increasingly as my work has evolved, friends and family will go, I knew that was one of yours. So I don't know what my style is, but there must be a style that's evolving because it's starting to be more recognisable by people.
Who do you follow? Or do you not, because you don't want to be too driven by what other people do that it should affect what you produce?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people whose work I respect. I mean, Dan Winters.
Do you know, I was about to say, because your work, and then I thought, no, don't say that, because your work reminds me of Dan Winters. Is an insult. You have your own way.
But I thought if you see a connection, that's lovely, because I think his work's amazing. I'm really influenced also by some photographers who you might not think of as portrait photographers. So Saul Leiter, for example, I love his use of colour and colour complementarity and so on. So I've done some black and white work, but I really enjoy working with colour images and colour grading. So there's a lot of people whose work I follow and respect. A lot of the kind of classics. I like candid photography as well, where, you know, not necessarily street photography, but a lot of photojournalists who've just captured the essence of characters. You know.
Do you take your camera onto the mountains much? I notice you've
didn't do it today.
You've not done it today. You've used my camera.
Yeah. Well, as we know, I once owned an X100V of my own, and I was going to bring my camera up, and then you went, I'm just going to bring my little one, and my camera didn't want to come out to play. Strangely, it stayed in the car. I've got a medium format camera, and I did, this is why I'm not a wealthy man, so I've got an 80mm lens which I use for my portraiture with my GFX 50, and a friend said, I think I can get you some work doing interior photography for a estate agency. So I was like, great, okay, I'll probably need a lens for that. So I bought the 20 to 35mm lens, which I'm paying in increments for the next 4 years. And I did one job.
Oh no.
And that's it. I've not had another work, but that means that I am kind of equipped to take landscape photography now.
So you could bring it up here.
I could, but it is heavy, and I like to travel light if I'm going to be doing scrambling and things, because you don't want to drop your pack and maybe knacker it up. So, but I could get into landscape photography. It's not something I've done. But when we were in Kapelkurig and we went to the Molshabog Cafe there's a photographer whose work's displayed there.
I must look him up.
Yeah, and I do see photographs like that, and I love it. There's a guy, I think his name's Black Crag, on Instagram, and I think he might be based in the lakes rather than Snowdonia, but his work's stunning, and the colours are amazing. And whenever I see that, I think, ooh, I'd love maybe to spend a bit of time doing that as well.
I found a strange benefit while you're talking about scrambling to having a bag that's slightly heavier. There's been occasions where I've actually shifted the weight and thrown it up to take me forward.
It's giving you a
That's
lift.
Probably not a way of doing this, is it?
If it works for you, use it.
Yeah, I've used it a couple of times now. I've thought, go on, you.
Yeah,
You're not hearing me swear, by the way, as I'm coming up, I'm sure. I've never really sworn on the podcast. I've got a feeling that when we get to the top, I might freely express my delight at the best f***ing apricot in town.
Well, I will munch my apple and avoid the blasphemies. We were saying as we were coming up that there's a wonderful sense of achievement when you've come up something like this and you've worked hard for it, and when you get to the summit and you have those views and you've earned those views.
Yeah,
there's something very special about it. One of the reasons why I think I don't photograph when I'm walking is that anything that takes me away from being present in the walk, and I know photography doesn't always do that, because when you're taking photographs, it's part of connecting to what you're witnessing. But I do find that sometimes if I'm looking for a shot rather than focusing upon the walk, that can become a problem.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes coming up with the intention of getting a particular shot at a particular day with the light hitting a valley, that's a very different skill. And the photographers that do it well get amazing images. Whereas my focus has been, I want to do this walk, and these are the conditions that happen to be. And I might take a camera and maybe I'll get a shot, but I'm not going hunting for an image. So I think that's the difference.
This would make a classic corporate, what do they call it, team building thing. I felt as team building has gone on through the ages.
You've got your wind.
I've got the wind, so I'm trying to shield it now in my hands. The team building got just a bit... Oh, I'm probably going to offend somebody now by saying it just got a bit silly, bit dumbed down, if I can use that expression. Whereas something like this, I would imagine would be for corporates, would be such a sense of achievement, working together to scramble. I mean, this path is a bit harder than the paths that you said you might take some of your students up.
Yeah. And I've got an idea that might work at one point, which is to combine something like this with the treasure hunt as well. So along the way, at certain locations, you've got caches with puzzles that have to be solved. So there's the mission to complete the walk, but there is also a mission to be completed as a group that allows you to maybe unlock a treasure chest at the end, or have access to your lunch maybe. There could be a lockbox at the top, and unless you find the right code, you're not eating. You'd be highly motivated, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would be, yeah, especially if you're watching the group eat. Is that nice, that sirloin? Yeah, good. Hope you don't choke on it. Right, how much further have we... This bit looks, suddenly it's gone sheer.
We've got about 100 metres of ascent now, and I think we'll be
it?
at the top, and then we've got the ridgeline, yeah.
So you used a military expression. I hope I'm going to be able to use this piece, that it's not too windy. There's a military expression which you used in terms of only looking so far ahead of you.
Yeah, the idea of the 6 foot bubble. So any task that looks insurmountable, it's because you're set your sights on the outcome, which might be a long way away. So you shrink your focus to the 6 feet in front of you, and you achieve that objective. Can I get up that rock? Yes. Can I ascend that part of the scramble? Yes.
Yeah.
And you do that enough times, and the problem takes care of itself.
Yeah.
So about shrinking your focus, having the big picture in mind, but control the controllables, and don't, because you're climbing 2 mountains otherwise, the one that's in front of you and the one that's in your head.
Yeah.
Now that is one I shall certainly remember. I'll pop these fisherisms up on the show page today under the title Additional Hiking Gems from Andy. Now, about the name of Snowdonia. Before we start that scramble to the tippity top, there's a scramble involved in this as well. Last November, so 2022, Snowdonia National Park Authority voted to formally adopt the use of Eryri, the Welsh name for Snowdonia. I'm not quite sure I've got it absolutely right there. It is all about the rolling of the R's. Now,
I've tried to sound convincing with my pronunciation when I've been attempting it for you on the show over the last couple of weeks, but what's equally important is that the switch followed a petition signed by 5,000 people wanting greater recognition for Indigenous place names. I reference North Wales Live's website for this view of the name change. Some visitors, they printed, from both sides of the border, have been keen to observe cultural sensitivities, but many have not. Some people argue that the use of Snowdon is part of their own cultural tradition. Others worry about the impact on national park tourism if anglicised names disappear. Many non-adopters, however, claim they simply can't pronounce the Welsh equivalents. A few say they'll only switch to Welsh names if phonetic spellings are provided on signs, landmarks and promotional materials. So there's a fierce debate on this issue, and it erupted online after an innocent-looking comment on the naming move was posted by outdoor holiday provider Canopy and Stars, featuring a photo of Eryri. The firm said you might know it better by its English name, Snowdonia. And here's the thing, because I did that at the start of the show myself. I'm wincing, because part of me wonders if the ain't broke don't fix argument surpasses 5,000 votes. Although 4 million people visit this place every year, there's a lot of bean counting between those. As someone who's made an enormous marketing error or three when it comes to naming stuff in my career, it's a sharp ridge fall if you get that kind of stuff wrong or simply make it all too confusing. Snowdon is now no longer to be framed or named as Snowdon. It is
Arwyddfa.
And let's get a stronger pronunciation now. I can learn too. Snowdonia is
Eryri.
See? Far better than my attempt so far, which I shall certainly work on. It's here to stay, it's respectful of the language, though I can see many guidebook publishers, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of literature that will need reprints. I can see those publishers scratching their heads in terms of the, wait for it, climb ahead to change everything.
I want you to know I've been taking pictures, making my sketchbooks as I go up. I just haven't stopped and said, right, let's take a sketchbook. It's if I do more mountains, then I'll be more diligent like that. But I've been making plenty of pictures. And Andy's made some. He took the X100 from me occasionally, secrete it in his bag.
It feels very snug.
Does it feel snug? Yeah, I'm sure it does. And so he's been making some photographs of me scrambling. I want you to know that the scrambling was challenging. If you look at the picture and you think, oh, that doesn't look much, it was. Walk a mile in my shoes. But we got a bit of scrambling ahead of us here. We're nearing the summit, so this might be a bit tricky. I'm going to try and hold a microphone. Don't tell my wife. She said, don't do anything silly, will you? While I'm trying to climb and scramble, I want you to lead me through the... How the hell does a mountain goat get up here?
Yeah.
Absurd.
Finding some evidence of...
That's not human.
That's not human, no.
Yeah, I was sent recently a guide on bear scat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pleased to say that doesn't look like a bear.
No, I think we're...
So, come on then, tips.
So
when you scramble, what are you essentially looking to do with your body?
You basically want to be really secure on the hold. So just because something looks like it's fixed onto the mountain doesn't mean it necessarily is. Mountains are in a continual state of disintegration. Yeah. So you want to secure your hold and then place a little bit of pressure to make sure it's not going to give way in your hands. Focus particularly on foot placement. Knowing that you've got a good secure foot placement before you start looking for your hands. You want most of the weight and the work to be done by your legs, not your arms.
Okay.
So by getting your feet...
here's a great example.
Yeah, there you go.
That's moving.
So it looks solid, but isn't. Yeah,
that's not solid. I was about to put my weight on that.
Yep. So finding good secure footholds, then securing hands, and we have a phrase which is secure 3, move 1. So you don't want to be lunging with both hands off the wall unless you've got no other choice. Right. And always trying to work with the body close to the rock. The further out you are, the more you're fighting gravity, and that's going to fatigue your arms. Yeah. So keep close to the rock.
No, I haven't been using gloves. I brought some North Face gloves. All the gear, no idea. And I haven't used them.
Yeah, I tend not to as well. I like the fact that you can feel the surface and your fingers can get into little nooks and crannies. It is quite rough, some of this surface, and if your hands are like ours, like my hand is the hand of a teacher, not a climber, so it can be a little abraded by the end of the day.
Right.
But it's a small price to pay to know you've got good grip. And it's warm. In winter months, you definitely want gloves on.
God, yeah. In winter months, these boots wouldn't do, would they? I'm wearing my lower walking boots.
They'd be fine if it was dry. If it's wet and cold, then no.
What about yours?
These are my summer boots. So I've got winter boots that go up beyond the middle of the calf muscle and completely enclosed. And the reason for that is I've worn these too many times when I thought I'd be okay, and then I've gone ankle deep in mud and then spent the rest of the day with wet, muddy socks, and that's not much fun.
What we're looking at now as we take another step forward is that's the summit, yeah?
Yeah, just over that lip. Yeah.
So that's a bit of a scramble to get up there. Can you do a... So I was going to ask... Oh, I almost fell back then.
I got you.
I did that on purpose.
Dramatic effect.
What have I got behind me? Oh, my God. I'm glad I didn't fall down that. Andy's now put his leg behind me. It's like being on a date. Would you do me a favour? I know it's in your backpack. Could you take a picture of that's facing us?
Yeah, I've got no record of having your camera, though. I can use my phone if you wish.
Yeah, no, you can use my camera.
What camera?
Oh, I see.
Yes,
right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Dudum.
Yes.
This is no time for jokes.
All right. Hey, I'm taking a shot of the last section of the summit here. Yeah. So
you got to walk through the f-stops and everything. Do it like I do.
Have to use the compensation as well on this thing.
Yeah. Set it to C. There we go. Yeah. And then you can use the back command dial. I've got that set to exposure compensation.
And I'm using optical, aren't I?
Well, it's EVF.
Yeah. I'm now choosing landscape or portrait. I'm going to go with portrait on this one. And that's the one. That's the ticket. Yeah, I don't miss this camera.
I can hear a steam train.
Yes, so can I. So that's probably the Llanberis service, which is up the valley from here. I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh. Is that commercial or tourists?
I think tourists now, but there's also a steam museum there, I believe, in Llanberis. It's worth a visit.
My son would love that. Right. Sorry to bark orders at you, but pop the camera away. Let's get another few meters.
Away, make it safe.
Make it safe. It's in the best possible camera bag, i.e.
my hat.
Andy's hat. I've had to call the hat on now because the sun is really strong, and I was beginning to feel, look, I'm freestyling, Andy. I'm ahead of you.
Seen that.
Hey, we're away. I'm like a mountain goat. God, look at that. If I need all hands, or two, because I don't have any more than two, I'll let you know. But at the moment, it's just up these stones. Neil, you need to go to the gym more. I know. I am going. Don't be horrible, other listener. I haven't seen you there of late. Do you ever do this, Andy, when you're walking? Do you start to talk to yourself? Because you do
most of the day.
You do a lot of solo walking. I find I do that when I'm on my photo walks. Having the dog with me is really just an excuse that I don't frighten people by talking to myself.
I think Oscar Wilde said the only way he could guarantee an intelligent conversation was to go for long walks on his own and talk to himself.
Well, he certainly didn't say best ways to go with Neil. That was for sure. Right, I'm going to put this phone away because there's some real... Oh no, this is okay. I found a way. Although you probably don't want to listen to me huff and puff for the next 5 minutes. Let me turn this off. I've got a feeling the next time you hear from me, we might be at the summit. Although the summit here isn't the summit.
No, it's the top of the ridge.
Top of the ridge.
We make our way to the trig point, which is a bit further on.
And that's a sort of...
a very mild climb.
A mile. So when I thought we got to the summit, and then Andy said, I'm sure he said down there, he said to me, then there's kind of like a little grassy trail. He didn't use the word once, climb. This is probably a good time to thank my extra milers for your support. Andy is one of our extra milers. This exploration is all of his doing, so I'm very, very thankful Andy for organising this. But of course we have several other explorations coming up. Neil, get to the end of the sentence. I'm willing you to. Don't worry, I'm going to be passing to my studio self in a moment. One of those is Inverness, which is now completely sold out in September. Looking forward to that immensely. A week in Scotland. Bring your midge nets for one particular afternoon by the most beautiful loch in the whole widest world, I think anyway. And so that's sold out. But we also have Africa in January, and that's still got places. So I'm going to cross to my studio self now. Trying to do links while you're scrambling up quite a rock face is tricky. So, Studio Self, would you kindly tell me all about the Africa retreat that's open to bookings now, please? Oh, come on. 50 metres. Oh.
Well, if this week is about adventure and trying things new, now would be a good time to give a hearty, nay, timely mention of another adventure, Africa 24. We're headed there on the 23rd of January, returning on the 2nd of February. It's many things this. It's an adventure, it's an expedition, it's a chance to learn or sharpen your storytelling photographic skills with an award-winning photojournalist who's worked on stories from being there on the day of 9/11 to the migrant crisis and many stories in Africa. The Gambia is rich in culture, history and natural beauty. Situated on the west coast, the smallest country of the continent, it reaches inland following the course of the 700-mile River Gambia, bordered on either side by Senegal, home to 9 historically important tribes, all of whom live harmoniously together. The country is blessed with much wildlife: aardvark, hyena, Nile crocodiles, warthogs, bush pigs, hippopotami, monitor lizards, chameleons, geckos, green vervet and red colobus monkeys. Bottlenose dolphins are spotted at the entrance to the River Gambia from the Atlantic Ocean as well. And the country's celebrated for its breadth of bird life, with over 500 species to be discovered in the forests and along the River Gambia's mangrove-lined banks, of which we will sail. Unlike other African nations where you can travel days and not see a soul, the Gambia is a more densely populated country that provides many opportunities to photograph people at work and play, in particular the super busy markets. This expedition into West Africa is an opportunity to learn, practice and experience photography from 3 guides, and is open for a maximum of 10 explorers. There's a link on the show page and on the front page of the website photowalk.show. Food, hotel, lodging and all transport plus guides are included in the ticket cost. All you have to do is get yourself there, and we'll meet you at the airport to boot. Just bring your favourite camera and an empty memory card, or 10 or 20, ready to make the most incredible life memories at Africa 24.
Studio Self sounds very smug and with breath, but I'm really looking forward to going to Africa with you. There's an amazing adventure in wait for us. I heard something the other day where somebody said you shouldn't ever call things once in a lifetime. It's that kind of Eeyore mentality I can't bear usually, but I suppose, yeah, that's true. Lifetime experiences, though, are very much what you make them, aren't they? And I know that sounds a bit obvious, and this is a lifetime experience for me because I am walking up to the trig point. I didn't know what a trig point was. Somebody's built a great load of stones at the top, short for trigonometry, and it's been measured so we know how many meters above sea level it is. And I'm making my way to it now. And this is a lifetime experience. It's very windy. I'm trying to shield the microphone best I can. But I want you to join me the moment I press the trig point. There's some people setting up camp over there. Are they setting up camp, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's the rest.
Ah, right, okay.
She looks like she's come dressed for the beach. For some people, it's just a walk in the park. So this is likely to be very windy now. I'll make no excuses, but you're going to be with me as we hit the trig point. I'll make a picture of it as well, a good sketchbook. Although I feel this sketchbook's going to go in a small frame and go in the studio. Are you letting me touch the trig point first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Here we go. 5 steps. All right, 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. Woo-hoo. Well done.
Good work. Well done.
First mountain. Is that a water hydrant sign?
You can refill here. Yeah.
Oh, you can you? No. It's been a bit daft there, wasn't I? Fantastic. So what can you see from here?
You can see a lot of the main mountains of Snowdonia. So just a few. There's Snowdon in the background there. We've got Crib Goch. We've got the Gliders. You can see Penny from here. In a moment, I'll pull out an app for you that scans the horizon and will actually label each of them, so you can associate what the mounds are with.
Can we do some sort of screen capture of that?
Never tried, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah, that would be nice to put on the show page.
Yeah.
Snowdonia over there. We look to be very... it's a bit higher, isn't it? You can tell.
Yeah, Snowdon's about...
Or Snowdon, rather than...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about, let's see, 220, 230 metres higher than where we are.
Is it a much harder climb?
No, I wouldn't say so. No. I think because you've done the scramble route and you come up the ridge, I think that what you've done, I just add 200 metres but the same level of difficulty, and that's pretty much Snowdon.
Well, let's go and do Snowdon.
Yeah, let's do it in the afternoon. We've got time.
It's afternoon.
We'll nip up there.
It's 3:45.
Yeah.
But we're here.
We are.
What does it say on the top?
It says, please insert branded water bottle here. If only we had one.
Oh, I just happen to have one of those. Hold on. Let me get a sketchbook for you. I feel like I want to put a great big Photowalk flag in the top. Didn't bring one of those.
And so I made my peak, and look at that view. Sure, it's not exactly Everest, but hey, from where I was standing, it felt pretty much to me like an achievement. I mean, it's not like there were any Sherpas in the area to wander past and say, stick another 8,000 metres on that, mate, and you'll get a whole new sense of view. And you know what? Many of our listeners have summited far greater heights than I have. Of that I know. Many of those who listen have properly scrambled on rock far more challenging in the rain and the ice, with a hoolie blowing properly around the lug hole. So I know that too, but there's something rather special about doing something for the first time. I've travelled, I've made stories for radio and photographically in and from many fantastic, incredible locations. But there stood 872 metres or 2,860.89 feet for those still talking in mountain goats per square inch and farthings. I did feel my sense of achievement, yes, and in this life, where by design many of our experiences are served up to make things as comfy and easy as possible, doing something for the first time is special. If this experience were a food, it would be a fully laden Knickerbocker glory with a cherry on top. I can't claim that as mine, I heard it somewhere once, and being a lover of that dessert, I think it expresses my delight perfectly. My little X100V didn't necessarily do the full landscape number on it photographically, but it travelled with me and made some, well, I hope, half-decent sketchbookers. In the evening, I looked up the mountain and was very proud to read that we'd taken a route considered, from the reading materials this is, quote, challenging. And that was really down to Andy, expertly guiding what he felt I could achieve. Now, this next part is completely out of order, but in that we're at the summit, it kind of makes sense to talk about another summit, though one probably not for me just yet, Mount Everest. You know, I said it's not like there were any Sherpas around. Well, in the evening, following the world's best-tasting pizza after our exertions, back at the base, a bunkhouse in the shadow of the range, two people showed up who would be sharing our house for that night. a former RAF armourer called Andrew, and a Sherpa called Keeper, who was Andrew's guest. Keeper's first time out of Nepal, he was keen to visit some of the ranges in the UK. In many ways, there we go, a man who expertly guides people across and up the most famous and dangerous peaks in the world. But his adventure was to fly, which many of us, I included, would certainly not consider necessarily a challenge. To say I was surprised to meet a real-life Sherpa, there aren't as many as you think, was like a summiting moment in itself. His English is pretty good, though we only recorded 3 minutes-ish.
Keeper, how many times have you summited Everest?
I summited 5 times Everest.
5 times?
Yes.
You did it originally when you were 22?
Yes, when I was 22, I summited Everest. So before 22, I tried to attempt Everest, but at that time I couldn't because of earthquake and avalanche.
For you, is it an easier thing to do than those that you were guiding up? I mean, is it just another day at the office?
So, because Sherpa has the only profession for climbing mountain in Nepal. So, not only since my, generation, so grandfather, father, everyone, they used to do, that's our profession.
Yeah.
So because of then, I become a guide.
And what other mountains in that region have you climbed?
I climbed Loche, 8,516. That one is old 4th highest mountain in the world. And then several 7,000 mountains in Nepal. So many other 7,000, 6,000 peak, all several mountains.
Is it different because you're more acclimatized to it? Is it different when it comes to oxygen?
Yeah, it is different. It is different, totally different. Like if you go 7,000, we didn't use oxygen till 8,000. We can go without oxygen, but we need to carry a load. So it is very difficult for us to carrying load without oxygen. So that's why we're using oxygen.
So the climbers that you're showing up the mountain, are they taking much gear with them on their back?
No, they don't.
It's all you.
It's just all us. They're taking some of water for if they need it, but most of water also we take, and they are taking oxygen bottle, but they needed to use, so they are taking. So one bottle of oxygen will be 4 kilo.
And I had no idea it cost as much as it does for people to climb.
Yeah.
How much? If I wanted to, clearly, I think, Andy, I'm ready.
You're ready.
I've done the 792. I think I'm ready to just a few more thousand. But if I wanted to climb Everest today, how much pocket money would I need to spend?
So we can have a package for 40,000, 37. So honestly, I can.
Is this dollars or pounds?
Dollars.
Oh, that's fine then.
Yeah. Cheaper for you then. So
not that much.
Yeah, someone 35. Depend if we have a more, depend on the group package.
Yeah.
If you have more people, then cost will be low.
Yeah.
But if we have a single person, then cost will be maybe 50,000 also, because we need to organize a lot for one person also.
So I need to bring a few friends.
Yeah. No, if you get, you need to, but we can organize more people to get from our company.
In all seriousness, though, people that want to climb Everest, it's not a walk in the park. It's a difficult thing to do. You need to condition yourself, don't you?
So some people coming through the sponsor, most of the foreigner, and someone, they have hobbies, they have a dream to conquer Everest, and they're doing by themselves.
What's the trickiest moment you've ever had on Everest?
We have a terrible earthquake in 2015.
Earthquake?
Yeah. At that time,
While you were up?
I was in base camp. So at that time, 18 people killed by earthquake.
Oof.
And then ambulance took me away 50 meters. I was at that time totally unconscious. Right. By the ambulance, the ambulance took me about 50 meters away, and at that time when I wake up, at that time I was totally unconscious, and one of my team, one member dead, and lost himself by accident. About 200 people get accident there in base camp.
For every 100 intrepid explorers who attempt to climb Everest, one will not return, and that includes Sherpas. Everest is unforgiving despite popular pictures of people queuing for the summit, and those who don't return are often not taken from the mountain, certainly above a particular altitude. They're reminders along some of the paths of dreams unfulfilled. There seems to be a disaster mystique around Everest that serves to heighten the allure of the place, filmmaker and director Jennifer Peedham, who's climbed Everest 4 times, said. I was surprised by the cost, at first that is. Once flights and further fees, including kit, are taken into consideration, 50,000 a pop, often upwards, certainly seems the norm. $200,000 is the very top end of what you might expect to need to find for this experience. A Sherpa earns approximately $6,000 to $10,000 per climb, but it's not like they're doing it every day, or indeed year. The list of achievers are varied. Ronald Crystal, a retired doctor from New York, said that to get ready for the climb, he did 3 personal training sessions per week and regularly climbed the 34 floors up to his Manhattan apartment, wearing the full pack and also his mountaineering boots. Yuichiro Miura is the oldest summiter, at 75 years and 227 days young. I like this though. Reaching the summit, Lakba Sherpa said, "It's an unparalleled feeling. I feel like a zombie who stumbled into heaven." But my thanks to Keeper Sherpa, and I want to return to our more modest achievement as we descend and talk about other matters, including trying to navigate around grumpy sheep.
I'm being heckled by a sheep. The extensive water supply that I brought has dwindled to such a point. I've gone through my 2 1-litre bottles. I'm now on to the last half of the famous not so famous flask, and that is it. Then I have no more water. So we talked earlier on in terms of survival skills. If you were out wild camping, then clearly at some stage you're going to need to find some more water, aren't you? So tell me what kit you have and how it does what it does.
Yeah, so this is a Catadine Squeeze is the brand that I'm using, and it's a very simple filtration system. So this is commercially available for about £50, and there's 2 parts to it. You've got a filter with a nozzle which looks very similar to a drinks bottle that you'd have for going to the gym, and then there's a flexible it's a reservoir which holds a litre of water.
Right.
And it's literally a case of filling up, so taking the filter off, filling it up, screwing the filter back on, and then you squeeze the bottle, and the water that comes out the other end is safe to drink. So
is this a reasonably new invention?
I think they've been around for a while. I've been doing this on and off for 15, 20 years, and I've always used... They're much smaller now than they used to be. They used to be pump action, and there'd be big units, so they've really come down in size and weight. There's almost nothing to carry. And the flow rate's faster. The older ones that I used to have would trickle, and you'd have to hang it up, and the water would trickle through over time.
Well, yeah.
Whereas now, as you'll see when I fill up your bottle, it's pretty quick. So all I'm looking for is a water course that looks reasonably clean. I'm just checking upstream a bit to make sure there's no carcasses or anything like that. And we can see that it's coming down from underneath the mountain. We've got lots of big clumps of sphagnum moss there, which is always a good sign that the water course is healthy.
Oh, why is that?
It serves as a natural filter, sphagnum moss. You can actually use that. If you didn't have a tool like this, you can use that and pour dirty water through, and a lot of the sediments just screened out by the moss.
Ah.
So we've already got that going for us, and it's trickling down through the path here. We've got running water, so that's ideal. You could probably drink from this, and there's a good chance you'll be okay. But you could also end up with a tummy upset, so the filtration's just an extra safety.
Go on then.
Okay, so I'm just filling up from the base.
Right. It looks really clear, doesn't it? Look at that.
So that's
about as clear as you will get water from your tap.
exactly, and that's before we filtered it. So then cap screwed on. Really important that then what I make sure is before I start to squeeze this into the vessel, any excess water that we've collected is dried off, so I'm not mixing the cleaned water to water that's come directly from the river.
Right.
Okay. And now it's a case of just popping the lid off and then pouring it into your...
Let me grab a water bottle over here. Let's take one of the... Here we go.
Great.
Oh, hold on. Put it over here.
Okay. And then here is the...
Oh, it comes really quickly.
So I'm squeezing the top end, and that's creating the pressure that's pushing it through the filter. And that is your potable water.
And this takes out 99.what%?
99.9% of protozoa, bacteria. It will not take out all viruses, but nothing does, because viruses are smaller than the holes in the filter.
And do you use this when you're...
All the time.
So, right, while camping, this is what you use for water.
Yeah. So The other option I've got, of course, is to boil water. So I might just take it directly from source. And if I know I'm making myself a cup of tea or coffee, I won't even need to do this necessarily. I'll just boil it.
Is it better boiled? Is it safer boiled?
Yes, boiling water is going to be even more effective than this.
Yes.
But of course, it uses fuel. It takes time. You've got to let the water cool down again.
Well, it feels lovely and cool for a start.
So I'll go and fill this back up again. You give that a taste, and you can tell me whether there's an aftertaste. Because, as I said to you, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Let's have a taste. Hold on. That tastes absolutely perfect.
Yeah, good. And it's
It
probably
really
nice
does.
and cold, 'cause
It is nice and cold. It feels like it's got ice cubes in it. I'm doing a wedding on Thursday. I hope I'll be there. Can't come because I poisoned myself from a Welsh mountain spring. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And these are all part of the survival skills you teach.
Yeah. Yes. All of the basics for survival. So shelter, fire, water, signalling, communications, navigation. All of those things are modules that I teach. And it's funny. Even working with 8-9-year-old children, they might not have any need for it, but they're just energy sponges for learning this stuff. And there's a sense of empowerment that they get from being able to go into the back garden and build a shelter, and then be able to build a fire and get the fire going and cook on it. They're in some ways lost skills that we used to do a lot more of, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic. See, there's another first. Mountain water.
Mountain water.
Not mountain water from a petrol station you pass by that claims to be mountain water that probably isn't, but actual mountain water. I would imagine we've made a good 2/3. That's a horsefly right in the eye. Thanks very much. Two-thirds of the descent, haven't we, by now?
Yeah. We're very close now to the tree line and then back to the A5. So
I can nearly see Car. You okay, Car? No. Right. Mental health. In terms of your mental health, as a teacher, as a photographer, as an explorer, as all these things you do, martial artist, teaching people outward bound skills, learning how to camp we're going to do this actually. In fact, let's mention this quickly. We were talking about, wouldn't a weekend, what do we call it? Survival weekend?
Or maybe we need to take the word survival out and just make it sort of a outward bound or living in the wilds weekend, something like that, because survival always suggests the possibility of mortality. So maybe I
like that element of risk.
I'm very happy to push the envelope as far as our group wants to. But yeah, we were saying that it might be interesting to see if there's an appetite for people to be taken out into wild environment and to do some skills development around things like shelter building, fire lighting, water procurement, all the basics of life, and then tie that in with maybe some photographic opportunities. Be interesting.
An interesting documentary story to make, wouldn't it? Yeah. But mental health is something we talk about a lot on this show, and for good reason. And a lot of the letters are about mental health, many positive, some working through particular issues. You've been taking a sabbatical from your full-time job, which has come in a timely fashion to you. Yeah,
absolutely. I think one of the things that I think I'm a fairly typical guy of my generation in that I try to be a provider. My job as a teacher means that it's very outward facing, and I'm often looking to meet the needs of lots of other people rather than my own. And I think mental health issues can creep up silently. It's a bit like carbon monoxide poisoning. You don't notice it until you're feeling sleepy. And it was, I think I didn't realise how much I needed this sabbatical until it was offered to me. And then I realised that I was quite stressed. I was getting quite snappy at home. My health had taken a hit. And I just found the kind of colour of life had gone. I wasn't feeling miserable, but I wasn't feeling anything. I was neutral and just going through the motions. I also didn't share that because I was doing that typical male thing of grit your teeth, get on, don't make a fuss. So yes, I think it's really important to have opportunities like this. I'm really lucky to have, how many people can take 3 months off work and I'm still being paid, It's a very rare opportunity. I'm very lucky to have it. And it's given me a chance just to reset, to reconsider what my values are and what my drivers are and what I want to do in the next phase of my life, really. So, yeah, but the takeaway for me has been how insidious it was, how easily I would have not noticed it, and it could have got a lot worse a lot more quickly. So thank goodness the sabbatical came when it did.
We talk about photography as being something that takes you outside, that gives you a purpose, a reason to be outside. For many people, that's how photography starts, actually. I think there's a bit of a mixture with you. It's not so photographic, is it? It's more about the experience of being out, because when I go home tomorrow morning early doors, you're climbing 3 mountains.
I am, yeah. I'm here for another 4 or 5 days, and then I'll be coming back in about a week and a half's time again. So it's about getting up into height. It'll be a totally different phase, because I've had the pleasure of Dan's company, then yours, and all of a sudden tomorrow I'm on my own, and I'll be on my own until Sunday. And if I go up into the hills and take overnight kit, there's a good possibility that I won't talk to another person or see another person for 2 or 3 days. And that's a rarity, isn't it, in our culture now?
Yeah.
Because suddenly it's you and your own mind and time. And I tend to take my watch off, and I tend to eat when I'm hungry, I sleep when I'm tired, and I spend the rest of the time walking and observing what's around me.
What does wild camping on your own feel like? We've talked about bivouacking on this show before. What are the... there's an absolute fascination, I have to say, for being... When we were up the top of that mountain just a moment ago, I'm going to call it a mountain, and you pointed out some areas where you'd camped down for the night. I looked around me. Now, I know we've been particularly blessed with beautiful weather today. I mean, look around you.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But being on your own, I would find quite a scary prospect.
Yeah, I'm not scared of other people, and I'm not scared. We live in a country, thankfully, where we're unlikely to be predated on by grizzlies or anything like that. So there's no risk, and I'm not allergic to bee stings or anything like that. So I face no risk from fauna or flora. I could handle myself if I had to against other people, but as you've noticed today, the people we've been bumped into along the way, they've been delightful. So for me, the only stressor or challenge of time out in nature is that unless you purposefully distract yourself by bringing devices and mobile phones and things, and then spend all your time plugged into audiobooks, which I on purpose, I don't do that. Then all of a sudden you come across you and your own mind, and that's again so rare because we're often so busy that we don't spend time checking in with ourselves and hearing our inner dialogue. Like, what are we saying to ourselves, and what's actually going on in my head right now? So that's the scary bit, because if it's not something you do, and if there's unaddressed issues, then they'll definitely come to the forefront. And that's even more the case if you get cold and wet and hungry, because you're already in a state of some distress. So this weather's lovely, and it's really nice to be in this environment like this, but I also quite take a sort of strange pleasure when the weather turns and you're struggling and everything's wet and cold, and you...
I'm pleased that the weather's not been like that today.
Well, as a first experience, this has been idyllic for us. It's been really good.
What does your wife think of the time that you take away? Now, we have had letters about partners. You know, I'm off on another photographic trip. He or she is not very, not necessarily supportive, but not completely understanding of that time that you require.
Yeah, so my wife Susie is very, very understanding, which is great. I think she recognises that for me, I'm a much nicer person to be around if I'm afforded opportunities to decompress and to do my own thing. I hope that I pull my weight when I get home. I do a lot of the household chores and looking after my son in the mornings before school and dropping them off and all of the family stuff. And it's important that I know that she's happy about this, because otherwise there's some degree of guilt, because you feel like, I'm indulging myself, and Susie's at home holding down the fort. So having a supportive partner is really, really important.
Looking around, changing the subject, the vegetation. Assuming that we're wild camping, we've got stuck here on the mountain for 2 weeks. We're either going to eat each other or we're going to start eating plants. What in front of me will sustain me?
Well, we've got a nice collection of bilberries here. They're not in season yet, so we don't have the berries. But bilberries are something you'll find all over the slopes. There've been quite a lot when we were doing the bouldering and the scrambling section. These are all over the.
That's what they are.
Yeah,
they're very tough as well. I was holding on to them.
They're very good. Yeah, they're good grip. So those would give us some food. Also, some of the reeds here. It's interesting that they used to use the reeds for candles. So they would take the stems and then open them up, and there's a pith on the inside, and then soak them in the animal fat, and then that would be let it dry, and that would be their taper that they would then be able to.
Wow. Okay.
And that's where our phrase "burning the candle at both ends" comes from, because you could turn it on its side and light both ends at the same time to double the light source.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not easy to live off the land. There's a very good book called Food for Free, if you're interested, which tells you about the edible food in the UK. So, for example, we've got thistles over there as well, and the stems of the thistles are a bit like celery. So you can shave off all the bristles from the outside, and that's edible as well.
Right.
But all of those food sources, you'll burn probably as many calories in gathering and processing them as you do from eating them.
Okay.
So you may still end up in a deficit. So it's as somebody who's tried to live off the land at various times in doing my survival training, it is really not easy.
So do bring your apricots.
bring your own food, yeah.
Yeah. What do you typically pack? What is? We talked about snacks earlier. So if you're staying out for a few days, then it doesn't become snacks. Then it becomes a little bit more serious. It's what you need to able to be able to move and do the ascents that we've just done.
So I lean into technology in this case. So there's a good availability of dehydrated foods now. That it used to be that camp food was really stodgy and not very nice, and when you rehydrated it, it didn't taste good. But this is food that's been dried very quickly, and all of the nutrients and everything are still in there. So you just boil water, add it, let it stand, stir it, let it stand for 7-8 minutes, and you've got a good meal. So, and it's very light. So I would tend to take a couple of those along for each day, and that gets me by. I tend to eat lighter, and then I'll gorge afterwards. You know.
Do you take a kettle?
I've got something called
a burner.
A jet boil, which is
jet boil. Yeah, I saw those.
So it's a brand, but they're very good, and it's just a gas canister. And you'll boil your water in 2.5-3 minutes. So there's nothing better than if you had a day like this and you then put a brew on and you sit there having a cup of coffee and your Garibaldis, of course.
Right. Don't find those up a mountain very easily.
So a jet boil is a really critical thing, and it also means if your provision of water filtration falls short, then you can lean back on that, because you can boil water with the jet boil. So something to cook with, something to eat, some way of securing water, some sort of shelter, first aid kit, and you're good.
Right, I'm going to make another. Hang on a moment. Where's my camera gone?
Behind you there.
I thought for a minute it had disappeared into the fisher bag. But I wasn't worried about the sheep. I want to photograph up these. It's a very lazy photograph I'm about to take, because I'm sat down on my backside. What's happened here? I've got lots of... See, this dial on the top of my X100V very easily turns. I wish I could lock it onto the C button, which is what I then use for when I'm making my... Oh, it's gone into square mode. That's strange. Hold on a moment. Have we been photographing everything square? No, last thing wasn't square.
No.
Hold on a minute.
That's when you down climbed on that last section. Bashed against the rock.
I've been pressing buttons without even realising it. Image size. Here we go. 1:1. So I don't want 1:1. I don't want 16:9. Let's have large 3:2. How on earth did that happen? Right. Take a picture of the path we've just walked down. 5.6, 160 ISO, shutter speed 8/50th, and there we go. I've turned the noise down a bit. You might notice today, I was at an event the other day and I was using this, and it was on what I call podcast mode. Very loud clatter, a loud click, which isn't the point of this camera. Right, descent. I don't know if we're going to make pizza time. You said to me that the restaurant's closed at 5.
No, 8.
Oh, 8?
Yeah, we're going to head to Hanging Pizza in Betsico, which is the best pizza in Wales, I think.
Oh, is it?
So that's a good place to finish off.
I tell you what, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. What's this?
So this is one of those reeds that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is I'm doing a somewhat clumsy job.
What's the reed name again?
I think it's just common river
okay.
weed. I'm sure that there's an etymologist or someone who'd be able to tell us what it is. But for me, it's just a reed. And as you can see, I'm just stripping away the outer sheath, the green sheath, and that pulpy material underneath there that you can see, that's what they would soak into the oil. So at the moment it's quite flaky because it's dry.
Yeah.
But that would then absorb the fat and become the candle.
It becomes a wick.
It becomes a wick, yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So that's
burning the candle at both ends. I remember that one. Mountaineering and walking in the mountains, we talked about this, just touched on it last week actually on the photo walk. It's I'll get the other side of you, here we go. It's a relatively new pastime, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, I was just mentioning that one of the earliest recorded mountain walks for pleasure rather than functionality was Coleridge, one of the Romantic poets who climbed Scafell Pike, probably high on drugs, because a lot of the time the Romantic poets were.
What?
Yeah, they were.
His family all right in, careful.
They're great participants of mind-altering substances.
Right.
And he got stuck and almost died. Couldn't find a way down. He couldn't down climb. And he found a way off and wrote about how exhilarating it was and how connected to nature he felt.
Yeah.
We're talking sort of 1790s into 1800s there.
Yeah.
Before that, mountains were just in the way of landscapes. They were annoying.
Well, it was. They stopped people going A to B quite so easily, didn't they?
And I'd mentioned that it's quite ironic that we needed to get as a culture, as a society, to a certain point of material affluence when we decided that we would seek discomfort as a means of pleasure. Because you would do everything you could to avoid discomfort when you're struggling to survive.
What was that? It was an audiobook that you suggested to me that has that's the premise of the book.
So there's a book called Built to Move by Kelly Starrett, who is a functional movement coach in America, very knowledgeable guy. And that book is a layman's guide to what we should be checking and doing in order to have a health span, not just longevity in number of years, but having physical movement and capacity in those years so we can actually enjoy the life we have.
Yeah.
So there's a series of self-diagnosing tests, like can you stand up from the ground without using your hands? So sit on the floor cross-legged and try and stand up.
Oh, not sure about that.
And there's a certain number of points that you would deduct for every time you need to put a hand down, or if you use a knee or whatever. Can you stand on one leg in no shoes with your eyes closed and balance on one leg for 20 seconds?
Well, I can do that one. I've heard of that test.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one I can't.
And there's several tests like that, and then some recommendations about how you might fix any gaps in your current movement.
So it's not a you're doomed read. It's more about, look, we've found what you need to improve upon.
Absolutely. And the thing I love about Kelly Starrett is that he's not one of these people that says if you don't train 6 hours a day, then you're not going to making the best of your physical opportunities. We're all busy. Any little thing that we do to improve can help.
Yeah.
Here are some meaningful ways in which you can enhance your well-being. It's a great book, really worth reading, and it's on audio as well if you're someone that prefers to listen to books rather than read them. So it's called Built to Move.
Built to Move. I'll put a link for that on the show page. We're over a stile here. And I noticed on the other side of the mountain that it had dog gates. What do the dogs do here? So bark a lot, this bit. He wouldn't be able to cope with this.
Yeah, assuming at this point most of the dogs haven't made it.
I'm not sure Barney today in this heat, he would have got, I'm not sure he could have done the clambering. Not clambering, what do we call it?
The scrambling?
The scrambling, clambering. Scrambling. He'd have been absolutely pooped by now. Definitely. Are there any other books that you would suggest reading for being out in the wilds and enjoying exactly what we've been able to enjoy today?
There are some really good books out there in terms of primers on bushcraft and survival techniques. There's a great book, a chap called Joe O'Leary, who's actually a UK survival and bushcraft instructor.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure of the name of it, but I think it's the only book he's written. So
right.
Joe O'Leary. I think it might be something like Bushcraft 101 or...
Yeah.
That's very good. Lofty Wiseman, who was the SAS survival instructor, his handbook's always a kind of a go-to Bible of training. But it's also really worth looking at books about the psychology of survival and being outside. There's a great book, which again we were chatting about at breakfast, called Deep Survival by Jose Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And it's all about in situations where everything's gone wrong, what is it that means that some people make it and some don't?
Yeah.
And it's very rarely about the skills they've got. It's often about the mindset, their attitude, their resourcefulness, their willingness to get past the denial of this shouldn't have happened to me to, okay, it has happened, what can I do about it? And those same skills, I think, apply in everyday life as well.
Yeah.
How are we resilient? How do we take knockbacks and disappointments and frustrations and keep moving forwards? So, yeah, that's Deep Survival. That's really worth reading.
Has exercise and doing this sort of thing helped that for you then?
Yeah, absolutely. If I...
Not just your martial arts, which I know you're very competent in. What is the one you do, your black belt origami or something? That's an old Morecambe and Wise joke.
No, I think now what I do doesn't really have a name. I think it's just a blend. It's just called combatives. It's just a military combative system. When I was younger, I went through the whole traditional martial arts process, and I graded and got my belts, and that was really good, and I liked adhering to a tradition. But when I started doing more security work, and when I was doing the close protection training and things, I found that a lot of the operators who I respected most, they just did a variation of combatives that were taught in the military.
Yeah.
And they don't normally have a jutsu or a do, or they just how to fight.
Yeah. Your close protection is something we've not talked about too much, and I'm not sure you can actually, because there's a lot of client confidentiality in that probably.
Yeah, I can talk about the training though, which was just that I left teaching for a while because of my background in martial arts and conflict resolution, and because I had experience as an instructor, and I was working the doors in the nightclubs in my area to get real world experience of dealing with violence. I got headhunted to set up a training organisation for people in high-risk jobs.
Yeah.
So
that's the bit you can talk about.
Yeah. So my close protection training was part of that upskilling process. And while I did do some commercial work with my licence, I was never in theatre of conflict. I don't have firearms training, and a lot of the guys who I met who train with me, they're all ex-military. They're very competent already.
Yeah.
And
did you just fall down then?
No, that was a controlled descent. It might have looked like a fall.
This is when most accidents... No, and I didn't do that one on purpose. I did actually turn my... That's what you call karma. Most accidents happen coming down the hill, apparently.
Yeah, well, you're fatigued, and descent is harder to control than ascent, so it's easier to put a foot wrong and stumble.
Yeah.
As you just
heard. Where were we? You were talking about close protection.
Yeah, just the guys that I trained with were already very competent, and if I was employing someone to protect me, and I had a choice between an ex-English school teacher with some physical skills, or a Royal Marine, a retired Marine, or a SBS or SAS operative, then I'm going with those guys.
Oh, I know, I choose you because I'd like a lesson in grammar.
If you ever fall short on the semicolon, I've got you covered. Yeah. You're good.
I do like my semicolons. It's an overused button on my keyboard at probably the most inappropriate moments. This is lovely walking through. We've got, as you can probably hear, let me put the microphone a bit closer to it. There's a stream. Unfortunately, there's a motorbike in the background, which does prove that, do you know, that was amazing. As we were up that mountain there, not a sausage in terms of, I thought we could hear a steam train at times, but in the distance, it seemed to be getting closer, and there definitely wasn't a steam rail coming up the mountain. That was for sure. There was a glider, but of course they make no noise, but it's absolutely peaceful. It really is. Oh, lovely. We're both stepping very cautiously now.
And so we're almost done for this week, yes. And I was considering closing at the refueling stage, the aptly named Hanging Pizzeria. I'll leave a link, because wherever you are in the world, one day, who knows, you and I might just turn up at this perfect place just to meet and hang out and chat about the day's walking. And if I can make a menu tip, try the Welsh Rarebit Pizza. It is without a doubt, and I'm usually a pepperoni kind of guy, the best pizza I have ever had on this planet. Not just saying, truly believing that. So yes, I did think we could end there, but well, I'm not quite so sure we're ready to hear chewing noises. This isn't an ASMR channel, that subculture where you watch but moreover listen to people scrumbling through dishes of spaghetti. So we'll end with different scenery.
No, that is not what you think. I don't know where your mind is sometimes, other listener. Well, we're back at the bunkhouse, and we found a quiet spot just over the back. Although you probably will hear some cars going by. We've managed to escape horseflies all day, but we've now put ourselves in part of the garden back of the bunkhouse where we're likely to get bitten. I'm sorry about that, Andy. Right. Suffering for your art. What are the mountains ahead of us?
So that's Photowalk over there, and I'm not sure about the others. It's not part of the range that I've walked. But they look good, don't they?
Yeah.
Tempted? Quick hair of the dog in the morning? Just nip it there after breakfast?
Yeah. My legs definitely now feel a bit more jellified. But what a day, and thank you so much for asking me and my other listener to come here for this particular show. It was a long drive up, I tell you, but it was worth every single moment in my thunderstorm-ridden, or is that the right phrase? Journey, anyway, as I battled through. There was one particular point where I stopped at some traffic lights, and just a couple of cars on, as we were about to turn left, this gush of, where were we? Anyway, a gush of water came down the high street and washed the car to one side. I thought, had I been on a green light only a few seconds earlier, I've never been so pleased to see a red light. Anyway, so yeah, it was worth every moment, and it's just such a beautiful day today. Talk about chalk and cheese weather-wise.
Yeah.
So, come on then. Did you enjoy the day? I don't want to say how did I do, because we went up a mountain. Did you enjoy the day?
I enjoyed the day, yeah. I thought it was great fun. And I will say, I think you did really, really well. And I know that that you had some trepidation before going up. And I didn't make the route easy. I kind of tried to read what I thought your comfort level was and then extend it a little bit. So the scramble that you were doing, there were easier ways in which we could have gone up that section.
What?
But I thought you were definitely able to handle the route we took, and you did great. And
a real sense of achievement doing that scrambling.
Yeah.
Because there was one point when you said to me, it was the first part of the scrambling, the very first part, and you said, I'm just going to go up this bit and see what I think, see if we can do it. And when you went up a different bit, and I thought, oh, that wasn't the bit I was expecting you to go up.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
And you did. Yeah. Again, there was a little bit of nervousness, but your confidence in your technique and in your climbing really improved as the day went on. And the point when you subbed it out, there were a couple of times where you look back at where we'd come and just said, I can't believe I've just done that. Yeah. And that's a lovely thing to take away, that you've done your first mountain, you've scrambled up there, you didn't take an easy path, which you could have done. And when you touch that trig point at the top, there's a real sense in which I have earned this. Yeah, it was great.
I felt like I wanted a flag. The only thing that was missing was a flag. We did put the famous, not so famous flask on there, I know, but I could have done with a great big flag. Well, you carry on over the next few days, don't you?
Yes, yeah. So after this, I'm going to go back, pull the map out, and take a look at what I think my next mountain might be. I'm tempted to climb Penny Olwen tomorrow, which is a mountain I've never climbed. It looks quite intimidating. It's steep, and you're going right the way from Lake Ogwyn all the way up to 900 plus meters. I think my legs are quite fatigued, so I think it will be a good challenge and see how I do. And there aren't an awful lot of paths that I can see that will lead up there. So that will be good as well, because some good route finding.
We didn't talk about maps and things today, and we did. You did use maps to get down, although we didn't really need it today because visibility was so good.
It was so clear, and the route we were taking, the paths, when we did choose paths, you could see them from a very long distance away, and they're very clearly designated. So apart from taking a basic bearing to make sure that the path we were walking was the right one, the map reading wasn't really an issue today.
Do you know, for years I've driven through North Wales to get to Anglesey to go on holiday and stuff. And I've always marvelled at just how beautiful part of the valley leading to it is. But having seen it, I can thoroughly recommend, if you are in the UK, if you're lucky enough to live close-ish to this, well,
hopefully you've seen it for yourself. But it's a bit of a journey, but it's well worth that journey. You've travelled as far as perhaps a little bit further actually.
It's about 5.5 hours from where I live. And that seems like a long way, but it's all relative, isn't it? I know that American listeners will know that 5.5 hours is just a nip up the road.
Trip to the shop.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all relative, and I think in Britain sometimes we can be a bit kind of overawed by journeys of that length. But the reality is, you get up early. It's a half day's journey. That afternoon we climbed our first mountain, and I've been climbing every day since. So it really is worth the trip.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I really do. And it won't be the first or last time you'll hear fish, as you're called by your friends.
I wonder if you'd pick up on that. Yeah, I'm fish.
Fish.
Fish to my mate.
Yeah, fish. We're going to throw them in the pool here that you heard just at the start. I'm not sure you want to go in that one. But
it's the link to the goldfish you were talking about.
Yeah, there we go. There's the link. But fish is going to come back in a moment and do the PS for today's show. I hope you thought of one. You had a few thoughts on the way up. You've probably forgotten them all now.
Yeah.
But don't say it yet.
No, I won't. I've got one in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today's show page for episode 385 is live and it's up in the air. On the website, photowalk.show, there will be pictures from the walk today that we both made at times, actually. You'll see some pictures of me scrambling. I was really pleased, actually, with the pictures. I was thinking, please, Andy, make it look like it's hard work. And it was hard work, and you've done that. So thank you for that. When you visit the page, I'm going to ask you a favour. Please, could you take a moment to share the show? A bit of a different show this week. It's been really nice to have an adventurous show, out with the camera, out with our walking boots. That's what this programme's about. We've talked about mental health and many things today. Looking after yourself, being out in the wilds, being able to stay overnight out in the wilds. I have a feeling, well, I know, we're going to come back to that. And if you liked, is that a helicopter?
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Hang on a moment. Look, we got a helicopter salute to end the programme. There we go. So here it comes. Oh, I think that's the mountain rescue one.
Yeah, I think
Look at that.
Yeah.
Is it out fetching somebody, do you think?
Could well be. So Mountain Rescue, they perform 200 rescues a year just on Snowdon.
Whoa.
So they're very busy. And they do an amazing job.
Yeah. Huge, great, I don't know what that is, that big Sikorsky, the type that take the riggers out to the oil rigs by the looks of it. Oh, I hope they're just doing a little sortie rather than having to find somebody. Certainly on a day like this. Where were we? Yes, if you could share the show, that would be fantastic. It's been made so much easier by Neil Ford, who's put some colourful buttons on the show page. You just need to click it, and if you're logged into LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or some of the other, or WhatsApp is there as well, then bingo, it takes you straight through and you can write a couple of words about the show if you've enjoyed it and then share it for us. If you're not logged in, it'll just prompt you to log yourself in. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would really, really help. As I said, I think we're going to be back with Andy Fisher. We'll talk more about that weekend. We can't call it survival, though. You're a bit worried about the word survival.
I think we should put a friendly face on it, perhaps surthrival or something.
Maybe. The Extra Mile is out now. Looking forward to walking some more with you. Thank you to our volunteers that help behind the scenes as well. Neil Ford, of course, and Andrea Gilpin, Emily Renier, and Kelly Mitchell. Our play-out song today is from Maya Isakovic. She's one of my favourite artists. You probably know that. It's a song called Soul Changing. I don't think I've played this one. She has quite a collection. I was trying to find something that I thought might accompany this week's photo walk in terms of a little mystery, because I felt that the mountain brought me a bit of mystery, a bit of trepidation actually as well. And at the end, you can see my mind's been working overtime here. At the end, a touch of majesty. It's a real building song in many ways, something that starts in the valley, if you like, prior to just heading off, and builds to a summit. I think this song does that. So Maya Isakovic, and then a PS, a final thought from the walk today, which I think today should come from Andy Fisher.
My eyes are wide open. I see you clear. this same floor our world has been shaking on. Oh, what's your soul saying? Oh, is your world changing? Oh, what's your soul saying? Oh, is your world changing? Your face tells me always things your mouth often spares, and I hope you know I do what it takes to bring joy into your day. Oh, what's your soul saying? Oh, is your world changing? Oh, what's your soul saying? Oh, is your world changing? Oh, my eyes are wide open. I see you clear. My toes touch the same floor our world has been shaking on. What's your soul saying? Oh, is your world changing? Oh, what's your soul saying? Oh, is your world changing?
See, told you, building song, Maya Isakovic as our play-out song this week. Right, final thoughts. A PS, as we call it. Postscript to the show. Something, doesn't have to be pithy, it could be some thoughts you've got about being out. It could be about mental health. It could be about, shall I just let you do it?
I've got one that's, I think it's a little pithy. It might be a little cliche, but cliches are often cliches because there's something quite important in them. And it's the idea of a journey of 1,000 miles beginning with a single step. It's so easy to put things off because they seem intimidating, or now's not the right time. We make a plethora of excuses, and you don't have to walk 1,000 miles. Just take a step today. Just take one step towards the future you want, or the world you want to be living in, or the kind of experiences that you want to surround yourself by, and then take another little one tomorrow. And one of the things I think we found on the mountain today was that if you look up at that mountain face, you might not begin. If you weren't there and you were you've got a couple of options. I could go up there or I could go around the side. You'd probably not go up. But you just take the next little bit ahead, like the 6-foot rule we were talking about earlier. You take a little step and then you tick that off, and you enjoyed the accomplishment, and then take the next and take the next, chunk it down, and you can accomplish incredible things. And I'm blessed to have surrounded myself by people who have done and continue to do that. They sculpt their reality rather than allow apathy to become their default. So yeah, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
The Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.